In my past life, Zhang Jianguo held me close and swore to the heavens, Hongmei, when the factory allocates housing, I promise you and our child will get a place in the staff apartments. But then he turned around and gave the technical school spot and the year-end bonus to the female worker Chen Yulan, saying, her husband died saving me in the molten steel, we have to take care of old Lu's unborn child for him. The year the factory faced food shortages. I was scavenging wilted vegetable leaves from the canteen slop with our daughter, while he ordered an imported cake for Chen Yulan's son, insisting, a growing boy shouldn't go without proper food. It all came to a head on that winter solstice night, when our daughter's leg was crushed by a forklift as she fought for half a moldy steamed bun. I burst into the factory office with her cold corpse on my back, only to find Chen Yulan wrapped in the cashmere sweater from my wedding day. She was pouting, tapping her finger on the housing allocation form. Brother Jianguo, Wang Hongmei loves you so much. Do you think she'll agree to the divorce? I'm still waiting to move into that cadre apartment with the double balconies. Zhang Jianguo picked a crumb of cake from her hair. She couldn't even take care of her own daughter properly. She wouldn't dare refuse. Once the funeral expenses for the girl are approved, the money will be just right for Xiaolong's school selection fee. In my despair, I carried my daughter on my back and jumped into the factory's steel smelting furnace. When I opened my eyes again, I was back at that morning when my daughter secretly saved half a steamed bun and slipped it to me. This time, I tore up the banner praising our model family, grabbed the firewood chopper from the corner, and said, come on, kiddo, let's go get a proper meal at the factory canteen. Braised pork belly is on the menu today, and we're having our fill. The first thing I did after my rebirth was tear down that model family banner hanging on the wall. That damned thing had been up for 5 years, turning me into the factory's biggest laughingstock, a living saint trapped in a farce. Hongmei, have you lost your mind? Zhang Jianguo's face darkened the moment he got home from work and saw me standing on a ladder, shredding the banner. He strode over and made a grab for the scissors in my hand. The director himself presented this to you. What are you doing tearing it up? His face turned ashen. He reached down to pick up the pieces from the floor, but I shoved him away. To hell with the director. I wrenched my hand free from his grip. With a sharp snip of the scissors, the velvet fabric tore clean through. I glared at him with a cold sneer. Zhang Jianguo, how can you have the nerve to hang that thing on the wall? Model family. Ask anyone in the whole factory. Everyone knows that banner is just a fig leaf for your shame. I stomped on the torn banner lying on the floor, grinding it under my heel a few times before spitting on it twice in disgust. Just then, Xiaofeng, who had been huddled in the corner, timidly tugged at my sleeve. She pulled half a steamed bun from inside her padded jacket and whispered, here, Mom, have this, please don't fight with Dad anymore. My daughter was skin and bones, her fingers red and raw from the cold. My heart felt as if it had been stabbed. I took her wrist in my hand. Feeling the sharp, jarring protrusion of her wrist bone, in my past life, at this very moment, I had wiped away my tears, broken the steamed bun in half, and said, Mommy's not hungry. 3 days later, she closed her eyes forever. Don't be scared, Xiaofeng, I said, my voice choked with emotion as I held her tight. This time, Mom won't let you go hungry again. Hongmei, what on earth are you doing? Zhang Jianguo demanded, stamping his foot in frustration. You're ruining yourself. How do you expect to show your face in this factory after tearing down that commendation banner? Show my face, I sneered, grabbing the firewood axe from the corner. I seized him by the collar and dragged him toward the canteen entrance. Come on, I'll show you exactly how it's done. Inside the canteen, a long line of workers who didn't have enough ration coupons had already formed. Master Wang, standing behind the service window, turned pale with fright when he saw me charging in. Axe in hand, Mrs. Zhang, what are you doing? Master Wang's voice trembled, the iron ladle shaking in his hand like a sieve. Give me Zhang Jianguo's meal card. I slammed my hand on the counter, the blade of the knife biting into the wood. This isn't proper procedure. Master Wang looked troubled, glancing back at Zhang Jianguo standing at the rear of the crowd. Procedure, I sneered. Zhang Jianguo, why don't you tell everyone here which poor orphan you entrusted your paybook to for safekeeping? When he remained silent, I raised my voice and barked, I'm taking your meal card today, and if you dare utter a single word of refusal, I'll tear this whole cafeteria down. The crowd began to stir, a murmur of voices rising and falling. Goodness, what's gotten into Wang Hongmei today? I heard she had a falling out with Zhang Jianguo. She even tore up the commendation banner. And in front of the kids, how did things get so bad so suddenly? I couldn't be bothered with all this gossip. I turned and grabbed Lu Xiaolong, who was standing in the corner. He was wearing brand new sneakers and holding a cream cake. The cake box was stamped with the word imported in large letters, "Don't you dare touch my son." Chen Yulan stormed in on her high heels, the gold chain around her neck glinting faintly. I stared at her coldly. "Chen Yulan, you use my money to buy milk powder and cake for your child, while my daughter eats spoiled vegetables. Wang Hongmei, have you lost your mind?" Zhang Jianguo finally snapped, rushing over to try and pull her away. "Xiaolong is just a child, don't you frighten him." I let out a cold laugh, snatched the cake from Lu Xiaolong's hand, and smashed it right into Zhang Jianguo's face. "So this is what you call the hardship of a widow and her orphan child? Open your damn eyes. Look at Lu Xiaolong, then look at our daughter, look at Zhang Yulan, then look at me, who looks more like a destitute widow and her child." My daughter wore a tattered, drafty cotton-padded jacket, and her worn-out cotton shoes had holes that exposed her toes. Her face was frighteningly thin, leaving only a pair of eyes that were large and bright. I was dressed in a shabby factory uniform, the sleeves worn through from use, malnourished. My hair was as dry and brittle as dead grass. Standing next to us, Chen Yulan and her son looked like movie stars by comparison. The crowd of onlookers grew, filling the cafeteria with a low hum of conversation. "Look at Lu Xiaolong, dressed like a little lord. You'd never guess he's a boy who lost his father," a female worker whispered under her breath. "And look at Wang Hongmei's daughter, she's nothing but skin and bones, with coal dust caked under her fingernails," a male worker chimed in, shaking his head with a sigh. "Wang Hongmei is such a foolish woman. She's the wife of a department head, yet her life is worse than that of an ordinary worker. Isn't that the truth? I heard Xiaolong gets imported milk powder, while Xiaofang can't even get a simple cornbread bun to eat. I've long heard the rumors about Chen Yumei and the department head being involved. Look at her, always dolled up with makeup, swaying her hips and putting on airs. She's already bewitched Director Zhang to the point he doesn't acknowledge his own wife and children. That Hongmei really has a hard lot in life, marrying a man like Zhang Jianguo. She's truly had the worst luck imaginable." A middle-aged woman sighed, shaking her head, holding Xiaofeng in my arms. I stood at the center of the crowd. As I listened to their whispers, I slapped myself across the face. Even an outsider could see it plain as day, yet in my past life, I let them lead me around by the nose. 6 years ago, while Zhang Jianguo was on a routine inspection of the workshop, the blast furnace suddenly exploded. It was Engineer Liu who shielded him, sacrificing his own life as he was burned to death by the splashing molten steel. Racked with guilt, Zhang Jianguo applied for the highest tier of subsidies and compensation for Lu's family. He even arranged a job at the steel mill for Lu's widow, who was 8 months pregnant at the time. From that day on, Chen Yulan moved into our home. Zhang Jianguo told me I should look after Chen Yulan during her postpartum confinement. "I've let old Lu down. It's our duty to look after his wife and child," Zhang Jianguo said, his voice thick with guilt. I said yes. I had also just given birth not long before. Right after having my baby, I was back on my feet washing diapers. During my own confinement, I breastfed until my nipples cracked, yet I gritted my teeth and carried on. When Chen Yulan was in her postpartum confinement, I made her carp soup, cooked millet porridge, and stayed up night after night taking care of her baby. Yet my own daughter, just a few months old, was dumped by Zhang Jianguo into the factory daycare. He never once came to pick her up. Every time I went to get her, she would cling to me tightly, her little hands clutching my collar, saying, "Mama, baby misses Daddy. Daddy is great, he's a big hero." Seeing the pure, innocent look in her eyes, my heart ached. I could only hold back my tears and tell her, "Be good, sweetie, Daddy is the director. He's very busy, he'll come play with you as soon as he's finished." But deep down, I knew the truth. From then on, being busy with work became the new normal. And Zhang Jianguo spent less and less time at home. He told me to give my year-end bonus to Chen Yulan and her son. He said little Long was born premature because of him, that the child was frail from birth and needed imported formula to build up his health. I didn't hesitate. After all, he was the department head, a man of his word, a man with a conscience, a man who valued loyalty. He was the moral paragon of the whole factory. What he said was right. Who was I, a mere ordinary worker, to disobey the arrangements of the department head? Later, Chen Yulan was unhappy with the boiler tending job the factory assigned her, finding it dirty and exhausting. She was an illiterate woman from the countryside with no other skills, and the factory was unwilling to assign her any other work. Zhang Jianguo then came to me and asked me to give up my spot at the technical school for Chen Yulan, so she could get training and be transferred to a different position afterward. I had worked hard for that spot for a long time. I was a model worker year after year, and the factory intended to promote me. which was why they were sending me to the technical school to burnish my credentials. Zhang Jianguo spoke with heartfelt sincerity. You're more capable than Xiao Chen. If you miss this chance, there will be others. I've already let old Lu down. I can't let his wife and child suffer anymore. After a long hesitation, I finally agreed. After all, he is my husband. My whole world. After Qin Yulan finished her training, Zhang Jianguo assigned her to his own workshop. He said it was to look after her, since she was new and didn't understand a lot of things, and I was transferred to take over Qin Yulan's position tending the boiler, a skilled worker, willingly shoveling coal. I was completely taken in by Zhang Jianguo's sweet talk, and his constant endearments of my good wife had me eating out of the palm of his hand. It wasn't as if colleagues hadn't warned me. Hongmei, a man's money shows where his heart is. If he truly loved you, he wouldn't let you suffer. There's definitely something going on between him and Qin Yulan. But I retorted righteously, how dare you spread such lies? I know my husband better than anyone. Don't you dare slander him. What I found most unacceptable was that our daughter had a chance to attend the school for cadre's children. Yet Zhang Jianguo insisted I give the spot to Lu Xiaolong. I refused. This was an opportunity countless people dreamed of. I wanted her to have a better education, not to be trapped in the factory her whole life like I was. But Zhang Jianguo was adamant. He said Xiaolong was a boy who had lost his father, so he needed schooling and broader horizons more. Our daughter could just follow in his footsteps and work at the factory when she grew up. I sobbed. Jianguo, Xiaofeng has always been such a good, sensible girl. She often tells me how much she wishes you could study with her, and that she wants to know all about the work you do. She's been hoping you'd buy her some nice paintbrushes and teach her how to draw. How can you bear to take that chance away from her? But Zhang Jianguo cut me off impatiently and left the house. Xiaofeng saw us arguing because of her schooling. She went to her father on her own and gave up her spot. Later, Zhang Jianguo repeatedly promised that once a new spot opened up the following year, Xiaofeng would definitely go to school. Xiaofeng lost her chance to attend the cadre children's school and went without schooling for several years in a row. She could only come with me to tend the boiler. Every time she saw the heaviness in my eyes, she would run over, hug me tightly, and comfort me in her childish voice. Mom, don't be sad. I like tending the boiler with you. This way, we can always be together. My heart ached terribly as I looked at her innocent smile and understanding eyes. Later, when the factory was hit by a food shortage, Zhang Jianguo told me that, as the workshop director's wife, I needed to have the right mindset, to share both the good times and the hard times with the factory. Things are tight for us, I said to my daughter, but we mustn't add to your father's burdens. We'll gather some wilted vegetable leaves, make a simple porridge, and we'll get by. My poor daughter, just a little girl of a few years old, with skin and bones from hunger, yet she still nodded understandingly. On the day of the winter solstice, driven by unbearable hunger, she went to scavenge in the factory yard. For a single moldy, rotten piece of steamed bun, she was run over and killed by a forklift. I cried my heart out, but Zhang Jianguo told me to stop making a scene. He said the factory would pay compensation and that I should look to the future. I carried my daughter's body to the factory office, pleading for justice. I stumbled upon Zhang Jianguo and Qin Yulan discussing how to divorce me. Hongmei is so naive. She treats me like her whole world. If I just sweet-talk her a little, she'd give me her heart and soul. Zhang Jianguo said smugly, I'll pin the blame for our daughter's death entirely on her. I'll say that seeing her reminds me of our deceased daughter and that we need to separate for a while. She'll agree to it. Once the divorce is finalized, you must marry me right away. I'm still waiting for you to take me and Xiaolong to live in that cadre apartment with the double balconies. Qin Yulan cooed with a simper. Then I'll give you a big, healthy baby boy, so little Long will have a playmate. With that, they embraced. My heart turned to ice. That night, holding Xiaofeng's body in my arms, I jumped into the factory's boiler. You wicked woman, how dare you steal my cake? How dare you insult my mom and dad? Hearing Xiaolong call him dad, Zhang Jianguo's face flushed crimson instantly. He spoke up awkwardly. Xiaolong is young. He doesn't know I'm not his father. I just felt sorry for the boy. Didn't want him to be called a fatherless bastard, so I let him call me dad. That's a lie. I sneered. Zhang Jianguo, do you think I'm blind? Do you think everyone in the whole factory is blind? Did you really think you and Qin Yulan could hide what you've been up to from everyone? Hearing my words, Xiaolong's face turned beet red with rage. He lunged forward and sank his teeth into my leg. Ah! I cried out in pain, seeing that Xiaolong had bitten me. Xiaofeng immediately rushed over and shoved him aside. Xiaolong lost his balance, fell heavily to the ground, and burst into loud, wailing sobs. Seeing this, Qin Yulan hurried over. scooped Xiaolong into her arms, and looked him over frantically, pointing at me. She shouted to the people around us, "Look at this woman, she's nothing but a shrew, not a shred of femininity about her, no wonder her husband left her, serves her right for only being able to bear daughters, what good is a woman who can't bear a son, she might as well crawl back to her parents' house. Her ancestors must have done something wicked for this to be her fate, not even able to produce a son." Zhang Jianguo's face darkened upon hearing her words. He frowned and snapped, "Yulan, that's enough, I will say it." Jin Yulan shot back, her voice shrill, "Lu Jiang saved your life, and is this how you repay him? By letting your wife bully me and my son, have you no conscience?" Zhang Jianguo stood frozen for a moment, then raised his hand and slapped Xiaofang. The blow was so hard it knocked out a tooth, leaving her mouth full of blood. The girl covered her face, her small frame trembling slightly, her expression one of utter disbelief. "Dad, why did you hit me? Who told you to bully your little brother? And you, Zhao Hongmei, get back home with me right now. Haven't you embarrassed us enough?" With that, he moved to grab and pull me away. "How dare you hit my daughter? I'll fight you to the death, you adulterous scum." I gritted my teeth, grabbed a kitchen knife, and lunged at Zhang Jianguo and Chen Yulan. "Zhao Hongmei, you've lost your mind." Zhang Jianguo's face paled. He hurriedly reached out to block me, but a flicker of fear crossed his eyes when he saw my bloodshot glare. "Quick, Yulan, get Xiaolong out of here. Don't let the child get hurt." As he said this, he held me back and signaled to a colleague nearby to escort Chen Yulan and her son away. Even in this moment, Zhang Jianguo was still thinking about the safety of her and her son. My colleagues from the canteen all gathered around. Some tried to grab hold of me, while others shouted that I'd lost my mind. "Hongmei, put the knife down," the factory director's voice called out from a distance. I saw the director walking over, his expression unreadable, accompanied by a stranger. "Zhang Jianguo, what is the meaning of this?" He reprimanded Zhang Jianguo sternly. Zhang Jianguo's face flushed a deep red, and his forehead was beaded with cold sweat. "Director, I handled this poorly, please don't worry. I'll take Hongmei and leave right away." He grabbed my arm and whispered a plea in my ear. "Hongmei, my dear Mimi, I know you're angry, but this isn't the place for a scene. Let's go somewhere else, and I'll talk to you properly." Talk about what?" I let out a cold laugh. "Zhang Jianguo, do you really think I'd believe a word you say?" "Hongmei, stop making a scene." Zhang Jianguo's voice carried a note of panic. "If you really kick up a fuss here in front of everyone, it won't look good for any of us. Hongmei, don't be rash." The factory director stepped forward. "Stop this nonsense. Look at you, holding a knife. What kind of sight is that? We can talk this through properly. There's no need for knives or any violence." With that, he signaled to his secretary beside him to take my knife. I glanced at the director and finally, slowly, loosened my grip. Seeing this, Zhang Jianguo let out a deep breath. "Hongmei, don't be angry," the director said, his tone softening. "Look, everyone in the factory knows what kind of man Jianguo is. He's been awarded model worker for ethics year after year, and he's always eager to help his colleagues. This matter, someone must be spreading rumors behind our backs. It's all Zhang Jianguo's fault, isn't it?" she shouted, delivering another kick in his direction. In my past life, I went to the factory director in tears, holding my child. He told me to put the collective first, that since my daughter was gone, I should just have another child, a boy to carry on the Zhang family line. Zhang Jianguo stepped forward, gripping my hand tightly, his face a mask of earnest sincerity. Yes, Hongmei, I, Zhang Jianguo, am completely innocent, as heaven and earth are my witness. I swear to the party organization, there is absolutely nothing improper between me and Chen Yulan." He paused, then said in an ingratiating tone, "Hongmei, you're a good wife. You manage everything inside and outside the home perfectly. Who at the factory doesn't know what a virtuous woman you are? But you have to understand, life isn't easy for us, and misunderstandings are bound to happen sometimes. I'll take this as a lesson to better balance my own family and the larger community, so these little things don't affect our marriage." Absolutely. Harmony in the family leads to prosperity in all endeavors. When there's harmony, any conflict can be resolved. We're all reasonable people here. We can't let misunderstandings tarnish the atmosphere of our factory. Haha, the factory director chimed in with an ingratiating laugh. Seeing my expression soften, the factory director quickly signaled for Zhang Jianguo to lead me away, as they all looked on with expressions of absolute certainty and smug victory. I grabbed the trouser leg of an unfamiliar man standing beside the director and slowly sank to my knees. "Sir, you must see justice done for me. I want to file a complaint." I'm here to denounce that hypocrite, that so-called model citizen Zhang Jianguo. He's a monster. He abuses his wife and child. He feeds us rotten vegetables, while he takes some other woman and her bastard to the canteen to feast on braised pork and imported cake. Everyone was stunned. The canteen fell silent in an instant. And all eyes were fixed on me. Zhang Jianguo's face was a mask of terror as he moved to grab my arm. The factory director's smile froze on his face, and he opened his mouth to try and talk me down. I waved a hand, cutting them off, and continued, and the factory director, he's willfully blind. As a leader, he makes no effort to uncover the truth. All he cares about is sweeping things under the rug, fobbing me off with empty, high-sounding words. He doesn't give a damn about the lives of us workers at the bottom, and you talk about a food shortage. They shortchange us workers on our grain rations, while these cadres are here feasting on meat and fish. My voice rang out with conviction, striking a chord in the heart of every onlooker. The factory director, his face ashen, stammered, "Hanmei, let's keep family matters as family matters. Don't go making wild accusations. The factory is facing genuine difficulties. The food shortage is real. And we are trying to find a solution. As for what you mentioned, there might be some misunderstanding. We can certainly look into it." The factory manager tried to speak again, but the unfamiliar man frowned and cut him off. "Stop trying to smooth things over. Let the comrade finish what she was saying." He then reached out a hand to help me up. I avoided his hand and said, "Sir, I don't know exactly how high-ranking you are, or what your specific responsibilities are. But I can sense the natural authority you command, even without raising your voice. I know you outrank the factory manager and have the real power to set things right." At this point, my voice trembled with emotion, on the verge of tears. That heartless Zhang Jianguo, for the sake of his mistress Qin Yulan, he had me transferred to stoke the boilers. He moved her, a barely literate country woman, into an office job. He even let that woman's child take my daughter's school spot. My poor girl, with no place to study, so young and having to work the boilers with me. As I spoke, I pulled my daughter, who was hiding behind me, forward and said to her, "Xiaofeng, quick, beg this honorable judge for help. He will see that justice is done for us." Following my lead, my daughter knelt down, with her clear eyes fixed on the supervisor. She timidly pleaded, "Uncle Supervisor, I want to go to school." As she finished speaking, large teardrops rolled down her cheeks. Then, with a heavy thud, both Xiaofeng's and my head bowed down to touch the ground. Our surrounding colleagues looked on in utter shock. Some whispered among themselves, while others cautiously glanced in our direction. The supervisor was taken aback for a moment, but quickly regained his composure and authoritative demeanor. He extended his hand once more. "Comrade Hanmei, I'm the city official in charge of the steel plant. You have my word. I will investigate this matter thoroughly and give you a fair resolution. But for now, you must stand up and cooperate with the inquiry." I released my grip on the official's trouser leg and, pulling Xiaofeng along with me, got to my feet. The young aide who had been standing beside the minister then led us to an office. He brought us paper and pens and said gently, "There's no need to rush. Take your time and tell me the whole story from beginning to end." I laid out every detail clearly, from Zhang Jianguo's self-serving arrangements to the factory director's utter indifference, and right down to Qin Yulan's every act of provocation and humiliation. I poured out all the grievances I'd held in for years, crying my eyes out until I was dizzy and my vision blurred. Finally, the investigation results came in. The factory director was severely reprimanded. Zhang Jianguo also had his wages docked and received disciplinary action from the factory. The factory reinstated me to the workshop, and Xiaofeng could finally go to school like all the other children. I made a decisive move and asked Zhang Jianguo for a divorce. To my surprise, however, Zhang Jianguo refused. No matter how much our leaders and friends tried to persuade him, he stood firm and wouldn't budge. Every day, he would wait for me at the factory gate with his bicycle, even making public declarations of love. He even tried to get our daughter to talk me out of it, but she had already seen his true colors. My daughter held my hand tightly, her gaze resolute. "Mom, whatever decision you make, I'll support you. You've been so much happier since you and Dad separated." But Qin Yulan panicked. On my way home from work, she stopped me. "Wang Hanmei, Brother Jianguo doesn't want you anymore. How can you still have the nerve to cling to him?" I couldn't be bothered with her. "It's Zhang Jianguo who refuses to get a divorce. You should go talk to him." As I was about to leave, she grabbed my bike's handlebar. "Wang Hanmei, just look at you. I bet you're like a dead fish in bed, too. Look what you've done to Brother Jianguo. How pent up you've made him. Every time with me, he goes at it like there's no tomorrow." I already knew Zhang Jianguo's heart had long since left me and our son, but hearing that they'd slept together still sent a sharp pang through my chest. I shook off her hand and said calmly, "You really have no shame. If you're so fond of picking through the trash, you can have him. I don't want him anymore. He's filthy." Without waiting for her to react, I got on my bicycle and rode away. When he said once more that he didn't want a divorce, I agreed. "Fine, send Shin Yulan and her son away, and I won't divorce you." The factory director mentioned before that he could arrange a job for her at the second plant. His face was a mask of fury. "Wang Hongmei, why are you always picking on Yulan? I've already sworn to you, Yulan and I have never wronged you. Why can't you just leave her alone?" I gave a cold laugh. "Oh really? Jin Yulan says you'd gladly die for him," he retorted angrily. "How could that be? Her husband died because of me. How could I possibly sleep with his wife? What kind of monster would that make me?" Seeing I remained silent, he took my hand and said gently, "Hongmei, we can't send them away. The second factory is so remote, a widow and her child, all on their own. They'll be taken advantage of." I was trembling with rage. The factory director himself gave the order. How could she possibly be bullied? With a personality like Chen Yulan's, we're lucky if she isn't the one bullying others. Besides, Lu Jiang died in the line of duty. The factory gave them compensation and a subsidy. And I agreed to let you give them a portion of your salary every month. From what I see, her clothes and things are the trendiest in our whole factory. So what's with this act of pity you're putting on here? I roared. "Look at me and Xiaohua. What kind of life are we living? We can't even secure the most basic necessities. We're never full, never warm. Who's the one being bullied here? It's me and Xiaohua, and you never stand up for us. Are you repaying a debt of gratitude? Or do you have some other motive? Don't you know the answer in your own heart?" I grew more and more agitated as I spoke, my voice rising in volume. Zhang Jiangwo's mouth opened and closed, his complexion shifting through a range of emotions. In the end, he let out a helpless sigh and agreed to the divorce. News came from the factory that I was to be promoted to team leader. The factory director, beaming with a smile, said, "Hongmei, congratulations, your hard work has finally paid off. To be honest, the factory had intended to promote you all along, but then you were transferred to the boiler room. Seeing how tough things have been for you, the factory has decided to make it up to you." I replied calmly, "Thank you for the factory's kind regard, but I don't intend to accept." The director looked at me in surprise. Just as he was about to try and persuade me, I continued, "I hear that if you voluntarily leave your post now, you can receive a subsidy, right? I'll take that subsidy." The factory director's eyes widened as he tried to reason with me. "Hongmei, don't act on impulse. I know the divorce from Zhang Jianguo has been hard on you, but you have to think of the child." But my mind was made up. I told him I was taking Xiaofang to Shenzhen. The clarion call of reform and opening up had sounded. That was a place brimming with opportunity and challenge. And I didn't want to waste the rest of my life in this stagnant factory. I don't want to muddle through my whole life in this steel mill. I'm going to fight for a better future for me and Xiaofang. The factory manager listened to me, sighed, and approved my application. When I got home, I told Xiaofang my decision. She held my hand tightly and said, "Mom, I believe in you. You're my role model, and I'll always support you." And so, filled with hope for the future, we boarded the train bound for Shenzhen. After 2 days of a bumpy journey, we finally arrived in this amazing city. After making some inquiries, I managed to enroll Xiaofang in the workers' school. The school had a lovely environment, with shady trees and spacious, bright classrooms. The teachers were kind and approachable. Seeing the smile on Xiaofang's face filled my heart with contentment. To celebrate Xiaofang's arrival in her new surroundings, I took her out for KFC, when the juicy fried chicken and delicious tangy sauce were placed before Xiaofang for the first time. Tears streamed down her face. "Mom, this is even better than the braised pork at the cafeteria." Looking at her, I silently vowed to myself that I would give her a better life. After that, I got a job at a garment factory. The work was tough, requiring long hours of labor in the sweltering workshop every day, but I was happy, because there were no toxic office politics or complicated social games here. Here, everything depended on your own hard work. The more you put in, the more you got out. However, I knew I couldn't stay in the garment factory forever. If I just traded the steel mill for a clothing factory, I'd probably never amount to much in life. One day, after the minister learned about my situation, he had his secretary call me. "Hongmei," he said, "your courage is admirable, but you need to keep up with the news and follow policy trends if you want to build a good life for yourself." Taking the minister's advice to heart, I spent every work break buried in the political newspapers at the factory kiosk. It wasn't long before I spotted a real opportunity. I started learning about stock trading, bought a stack of books, and became a regular at the exchange, picking the brains of seasoned investors. My daughter joked that if I'd applied that same drive to my studies, I could have easily gotten into university. I opened an account, invested half of my savings, and with a bit of luck, I earned my first real pot of gold. With that money, I bought a plot of land on the outskirts of the city. Land wasn't very expensive back then, and I began making plans to build a factory for garment manufacturing. I poured my heart and soul into that small factory, from finding workers and buying equipment to designing products and opening up markets. I was hands-on with every single step. Xiaofeng was a very sensible girl. She did well in her studies and often shared the little details of her school life with me. Watching her grow up day by day filled me with immense satisfaction. My old colleagues from the steel mill heard I was doing well after leaving, and quite a few wanted to come work for me. Once, a former colleague sought me out and we chatted about the old days at the mill. He said with a wistful expression, "Hongmei, you were the one with foresight after all." After you left, Zhang Jianguo married Qin Yulan. They did move into an apartment building, and life was pretty good for them at first, but who could have predicted the wave of layoffs? When you went into business back then, some people even mocked you. Looking back now, you were the smartest one of us all. I was stunned for a moment and said nothing. The steel mill went bankrupt and was turned into a pig farm. The factory director and Zhang Jianguo didn't want to leave, so now they're scraping by, working at that farm. And that Qin Yulan, she really was a piece of work. The moment she saw Zhang Jianguo was down on his luck, she turned around, took Xiaolong, and ran off with the factory's accountant, Zhao. I heard the accountant and Qin Yulan were from the same village. They'd been carrying on for ages. Turns out even Xiaolong was accountant Zhao's kid. No wonder he didn't look a thing like Lu, that poor Lu Jiang. His workmate Wang Chong said that on the day of the accident, Lu was completely out of it. He kept muttering that the baby in his wife's belly wasn't his, and that he was going home to kill the adulterous pair. An operational error caused the boiler explosion. After Lu Jiang died, Wang Chong didn't dare say anything more, out of respect for the dead. Poor Zhang Jianguo, treating that bastard like a treasure. Completely unaware of how many times he's been cuckolded, she kept rambling on, but I had lost all interest in listening. I called over the supervisor and arranged for her to start work. She followed him out, overflowing with gratitude. Once, on a business trip to Guangzhou, I happened to see Qin Yulan on the street. She was wearing a cheap red bodycon dress, her heavy makeup unable to conceal the weariness and exhaustion on her face. She was offering her services for 50 yuan a pop. I saw John start a transaction with her on the street corner. When it was over, his demeanor changed completely. Not only did he refuse to pay, but he also turned violently on Qin Yulan. "You worthless hag, you think you deserve money for that pathetic performance." Her face was a mask of terror. She could only plead helplessly, which only provoked him into beating her more savagely. After taking his pleasure once more, the John hitched up his pants, cursing under his breath, and flung a crumpled 50 yuan note in her face. A dark figure darted past the mouth of the alley. Xiao Long, with his shock of bleached hair and a cigarette dangling from his lips, sauntered over. He snatched Qin Yulan's bag, dumping out a few coins and half a box of condoms. "Is this all the money you've got, you old hag?" he snarled, driving his foot into her chest. Qin Yulan slammed against the brick wall. Her glazed eyes suddenly locked onto me, as if recognizing who I was. Her lips parted slightly, then closed again without a sound. It turned out that after being laid off, Accountant Zhao brought his wife and son to Guangzhou. At first, Accountant Zhao did make some money. However, he soon became addicted to gambling and eventually lost everything of value in the house. He even used Qin Yulan as a stake in his bets. Qin Yulan was uneducated and had grown accustomed to a life of idleness and gluttony, with no other means to survive. She was forced into prostitution. As for Xiaolong, he lacked proper guidance and education from a young age and developed a rebellious streak. Watching his father gamble and his mother sell her body, he too gradually strayed onto a crooked path. He joined a motorcycle gang, running with a rough crowd. They'd tear through the streets on their bikes, robbing pedestrians and motorists. It wasn't long before he was caught and thrown in prison. I saw Zhang Jianguo again at my daughter's college acceptance celebration. He was slightly stooped, and his whole demeanor seemed weathered and weary. He walked up to me and, choosing his words carefully, said, "Hongmei, it's been so many years, you've really changed. You look so young and beautiful now. I hardly recognized you." I replied flatly, "What is it? I see you on TV all the time now. I had no idea your business had become so successful. That's incredible. And you've raised our daughter so well, getting into Tsinghua University." with a look of genuine sincerity, he said, "Hanmei, I miss our daughter, and I miss you." I let out a cold laugh and said without mercy, "It's a little late for that now, don't you think? Back then, for Chin Yulan, you cast us aside without a second thought. All those years you were out there living it up. Did you ever once think about the hardship we faced? Now that you've fallen on hard times yourself, you start having regrets. What kind of nonsense is that?" A pained expression crossed Zhang Jianguo's face. "Hanmei, I truly regret it. I was blinded by Qin Yulan's pitiful, delicate act and failed to see her for who she really was. All these years, I felt so guilty towards you and Xiafang. Now I understand. The one I truly love is you." I let out a bitter laugh, as if I'd just heard a joke. "You say that as if you're the victim. Back then, to protect your precious reputation, you were perfectly content to let me raise Qin Yulan and her son for you. Then, when you saw how young, beautiful, and uninhibited she was, you fell for her, but you didn't dare admit it, afraid it would tarnish your image, so you forced me to be the one to ask for the divorce. You pay lip service to a son or a daughter, it's all the same, but in reality, you think your own flesh and blood daughter isn't as good as someone else's son, isn't that right? And you have the nerve to say you missed me and our daughter. All these years, I never once stopped you from seeing her. Have you ever even looked her way? Now that you see we're doing well, you come crawling back with your phony apologies, expecting me and our daughter to take you in. Do you really think I'd believe a word you say?" My words cut through his facade like a sharp knife, his face fell, and in the end, he left looking utterly dejected. Zhang Jianguo didn't leave Shenzhen. He found a job as a security guard at a factory nearby. The guard told me that Zhang Jianguo would leave a letter at the reception every month. I opened one once. Inside was his meager salary and a letter filled with remorse. After that, I left it to the gatekeeper to handle and never opened another one. Eventually, the letters stopped coming altogether. I heard he had passed away from uremia. I told Xiaofang the news. She was silent for a moment, then took my arm and said, "Mom, let's go get some KFC." Story 2. The entire sect was afflicted with a love poison, requiring a 3-day immersion in the frigid pool to detoxify. Our germophobic junior sister, however, threw a fit, refusing to share the pool with everyone else. This time, I didn't try to talk her out of it. Instead, I watched as my fiancé and our master produced a divine artifact to forcibly erect a barrier, insisting that everyone wait for the junior sister to finish her soak first. In my past life, when the demonic horde attacked, the entire sect was afflicted by the ancient love poison, Heart's Ember. If left uncured, it would inevitably lead to a death by heart-scorching agony. Everyone was terrified and on edge, yet, my fiancé and our master insisted that everyone wait for my junior sister to finish her medicinal bath first. I couldn't stand by and watch any longer, so I rallied everyone to break through the barrier. I even taught them my secret cultivation technique, which allowed us to restore our spiritual power on the final day and defeat the demonic clan. This secured our position as the #1 sect in the world. However, my junior sister got angry, left the sect, and vanished without a trace. When I saw her again, she had been reduced to a mere cauldron for cultivation, limbless and at the mercy of the demonic race for their twisted pleasures. My fiancé and master showed no hint of emotion on the surface. Instead, they let out a scornful laugh. All because of her petty tantrum, she nearly brought the entire sect to ruin. Yet, on the very day of my tribulation, my fiancé deceived me into giving up my protective artifact, and my master personally carved out my golden core. They ignored my pleas, their faces twisted with hatred. If you hadn't rallied everyone to guilt-trip us with your moralizing, our junior sister wouldn't have left in anger, wouldn't have met with such a catastrophic end. This is your retribution. Go to hell and atone for your sins against her. Only then did I realize they had always hated me. When I opened my eyes again, I had returned to the very moment our entire sect was afflicted by the love's poison. I didn't make a fuss, I simply smiled and let them have their way. There is, however, another way to cure the love's poison. But ours is a sect that cultivates the path of heartlessness. 1. This is the ancient passion's bane. If we don't get the disciples into the frost spring pool to detoxify soon, their spiritual roots will be corrupted, and they'll never be able to cultivate again. What's more, the detoxification takes 3 full days, and the demonic horde is set to attack again in 3 days. If we don't start the cure now, it will be too late. Every last member of the sect was afflicted by the passion toxin. Their faces flushed crimson and their vital energies in disarray, clinging to the last shreds of their sanity to suppress their primal urges. The disciples could only hope their master would lift the barrier around the frostfall pool, allowing them to quickly purge the poison, yet their master, already soaking in the icy waters with an arm wrapped around their junior sister. Lu Meow Meow flatly refused without a second thought, his face dark. Meow Meow has a cleanliness obsession. She could never bear to share the pool with so many of you for the detoxification. She is your junior sister. It's only right that you give way to her. The disciple was so enraged by his master's unapologetic words that his fury surged, and he violently coughed up a mouthful of blood. Seeing his master's unwavering resolve, he could only plead with a desperate expression, "Even if you make us wait 3 days, the 4 elders cannot afford to wait." He was referring to the 4 elders tasked with guarding the Spirit Sword sect. Their cultivation had reached the divine transformation stage, making them the sect's pinnacle combat force. Without them, the Spirit Sword sect would lack even the capability to face the demonic race in battle, and would likely face complete annihilation. The master snorted coldly, "Elder Chen can't wait to be cured. But do you think Meow Meow isn't anxious too? Her cultivation is weak. She needs the antidote even more urgently." The disciples never imagined the master could be so stubborn and unyielding. They had no choice but to turn and plead with me. "Senior sister Ling Xiao, you are the immortal venerable's personal disciple and senior brother Tiany's betrothed. They'll listen to you for sure. Please, make them lift the barrier." As the guardian of the Frostfall pool, in my past life, the moment I heard the entire sect had fallen victim to the passion's venom, I immediately decided to open the pool. Yet, just because our junior sister claimed she had a cleanliness obsession, the sect master and Si Tiany used a divine artifact to forcibly seal the pool with a barrier, reserving it for only the 3 of them to detoxify first. With the demonic clans watching us like hawks, I wanted Elder Chen to purge the venom as quickly as possible. I then joined forces with my disciples to break the barrier, helping them successfully resolve the love's poison before the demonic invasion. Not only did we win the immortal demon war, but we also secured the Spirit Sword sect's position as the world's foremost sect. Yet, during my own ascension tribulation, I was tricked by Si Tiany into giving up my protective artifact. This left me defenseless as 99 heavenly thunderbolts shattered my spiritual root, stripping me of all my cultivation. I begged my master to save me, but instead, he tore open my dantian and brutally ripped out my golden core. They took one look at my wretched state and laughed with cruel delight. "Ling Xiao, you deserve this. If you hadn't rallied the disciples to guilt-trip us into breaking the barrier and soaking in the frost spring pool, why would our junior sister have stormed off in anger? She was the pearl we cherished in our palms, and because of you, her limbs were broken and she was turned into a cauldron for the demons to defile. This is your retribution. Go to hell and atone to her." They broke my limbs and threw me into a den of demons to be toyed with. By the time I breathed my last, there wasn't a single patch of unmarred flesh on my body. In the end, I became a meal to sate a demon beast's hunger. Even heaven took pity on me, granting me this one chance at rebirth. Instead of bustling about for everyone like in my past life, I offered an awkward yet polite smile. "Wow, you're absolutely right. After all, junior sister has her fastidious ways. We can't very well force her to undergo the detoxification with the rest of us. I'll leave this icy spring to you all then. I hope you enjoy it thoroughly, too." With the knowledge from my past life, I knew full well that simply soaking in the cold spring wouldn't completely cure the love poison. It must be combined with my unique cultivation technique to purge the toxin. Otherwise, the poison will only grow more virulent with time. On the first day, the poison will seep into the spiritual meridians, damaging the spiritual root and halting all cultivation. By the second day, all of one's cultivation base will gradually dissipate as the poison takes deeper hold. By the third day, they can only endure the agony of a burning heart and slowly die. The damage caused by this is irreversible. The true effect of soaking in the cold pool is merely to alleviate the passion poison. The most crucial thing is still my unique cultivation technique. I ignored them and walked to a corner to meditate in peace, but then, someone gave my shoulder a hard shove. "What do you mean we can't force little junior sister? What about our heartbreak poison? When it comes down to it, you're just a dog guarding the frost pond. What gives you the right to hand the entire pond over to them? You'd better come up with a solution for us, or you'll be heading to the punishment hall for a whipping." When the master and Si Tiany spoke up for Lu Meow Meow just now, these people didn't dare to make a sound. I made a concession by following their lead, yet they turned all their anger on me. With a vicious expression, they cursed. "Stop playing dead. Didn't you hear what we said?" I cast a cold glance at them. Excessive anger and agitation will only fuel the poison of passion. If you have such immense grievances, go find a way to break the artifact's barrier yourselves. Stop shouting at me here. In my past life, I risked my body exploding. pleading with each of them, one by one, to help me break the barrier. Yet, after reaping the benefits, they showed me not a shred of gratitude. Instead, when my master and Tiani set me up, they chose to stand by and watch coldly, heaping scorn upon me. We never asked you to break the barrier. What gives you the right to hold that over our heads? You brought all of this on yourself. If it weren't for you, our junior sister wouldn't have suffered so terribly. Since that's how it is, I certainly won't meddle in their affairs anymore. Seeing that I had taken the initiative to shoulder the blame, no matter how furious they were, they could only swallow their anger and glare at the cold pool. They all acted like timid turtles, not a single one daring to step forward. I let out a scornful laugh and paid them no further mind. After a whole night of circulating my energy to expel the toxins, my condition had improved significantly. However, the disciples, lacking the unique mental cultivation technique I had yet to teach them, had already had their minds corrupted by the passion poison. The lower-level disciples could no longer restrain themselves. With a guttural roar, they tore at their robes, driven to charge into the frigid pool. Even when blocked by the barrier, they threw themselves against it relentlessly, battering themselves bloody without pause. Lu Miao Miao let out a terrified shriek and huddled, trembling, in the arms of our master and my betrothed. The master and her fiancé immediately drew their swords and cut down the deranged disciples. Then, with a cold expression, she declared, "Anyone else who loses their mind and tries to fight Miao Miao for the Frostfall pool will share their fate." The remaining disciples were frozen in place, too terrified to move. He took a few steps back from the frigid pool. A moment later, Lu Miao Miao produced a small vial of pink liquid from her robes and poured its entire contents into the pool. The scent of peach blossoms instantly filled the air. The four elders' eyes snapped open, their expressions changed abruptly, and they immediately rose to their feet, striding purposefully toward the pool. "Have you lost your mind? What in the world did you just pour into the Frostfall pool? Don't you understand? The water's purity and extreme cold are the only things that can suppress the passion's venom. You've just contaminated the entire pool. If the venom isn't cured within 3 days, the spirit sword sect is finished." Lu Miao Miao's eyes welled up with frightened tears as she hastily ducked behind Tiani, her voice trembling pitifully. "I was so frightened by what just happened. And since peach blossom essential oil has calming properties, I thought I'd add some to the frost water pool as well. Besides, I had no idea the frost water pool was so unique that it would react to the oil. Senior sister Ling Xiao, as its guardian, never told me any of this." With a single sentence, Lu Miao Miao shifted all the blame squarely onto me, her soft chest pressed against Tiani's back, sending a wave of dizzying confusion through him. When he turned and met my icy gaze, a flicker of discomfort crossed his heart. Tiani snorted coldly, his shame turning to anger. "Why didn't you tell Miao Miao something this important sooner? Did you just want to see her make a fool of herself and cause trouble? How can you be so petty? How many times have I told you? Miao Miao is shy and reserved by nature. Isn't it perfectly normal that she can't accept bathing in the cold spring with unrelated men? Not everyone is as shameless as you. Mingling with the disciples all day long and not giving your own fiancé a second thought." The four elders were so furious they saw stars. They simply couldn't fathom why their master, a renowned genius of the sword path revered throughout the cultivation world, would become so utterly unreasonable the moment Lu Miao Miao was involved. Lu Miao Miao's eyes welled up with tears of grievance. "Brother Tiani, please don't speak of senior sister Ling Xiao that way. It's all my fault. I should have just let everyone have the frost spring. After all, I'm just a lowly disciple with meager cultivation. If I were to die from the torment of this love poison, no one would even care." She scooped up a pot of the frost spring water and handed it over. "Before the essential oils fully permeate the water, please make do with this, honored elders. I just hope you won't mind that it's my bathwater." This humiliating act so enraged the four elders that they were left speechless with fury. Unable to even utter a word of rebuke, the moment they opened their mouths, they violently coughed up a mouthful of blood, a clear sign of their overwhelming rage. 3. Seeing the four elders truly on the verge of a chi deviation, Lu Miao Miao had no choice but to quickly defend herself. "I was only joking. I never expected the elders to react so strongly. Besides, I genuinely hoped the cold spring water, not fully tainted by the essential oils, would be of use to the elders." Sob. The master and Tiani immediately shielded her, whispering a few words of comfort before turning to glare at me with fury. "Miao Miao didn't do it on purpose. When you get down to it, isn't it your fault for not telling her about the frost pool? If we're assigning blame for sending the elders into such a rage, the real culprit is you." The disciples chimed in one after another. "Ever since our junior sister joined the sect, She's been jealous of her innocent charm and popularity. She must have deliberately kept the frost pool a secret. If she had prepared for this situation earlier, we wouldn't be stuck unable to cure this aphrodisiac poison. Even if we can't soak in the frostfall pool, just being near it seems to help. Someone as vile as her doesn't deserve to be here. Get lost. They still thought it was the proximity to the frostfall pool that was working. Little did they know, it was me guiding their meditation and energy circulation that alleviated the poison. Looking at their despicable faces, I was so angry I almost laughed. I couldn't be bothered to argue or explain any further, so I simply turned and left. I found the cave dwelling I had used for secluded cultivation by the frigid pool all those years ago. It was shabby and cramped, but its greatest virtue was its seclusion. Once I set up the barrier, even if the demon clan and their fiends storm the mountain, they won't necessarily be able to find me. The disciples outside no longer have access to my unique cultivation method. It won't do a thing to alleviate the love's poison. I'd love to see how they, who cultivate the path of emotionlessness, plan to break the curse of this love's poison. I remained secluded in my cave abode, continuing my meditation and cultivation. After all, time was truly running out for me. I had to use this final stretch of time to exert my utmost effort in purging the poison and restoring my cultivation base. At that moment, from the cold pool outside the cave, came the sounds of a man and a woman laughing and playfully roughhousing. A splash of water sounded, followed by Lumiamia's coquettish, chiding voice. Master, senior brother, you're both so mean. You knew I was wearing something thin today, and you still splashed me. Now you're going to see everything. How am I supposed to get married after this? The disciples stared with wide eyes, their gazes wolfish as they took in Lumiamia's thoroughly drenched form. Her curvaceous figure was on full display. The coy gestures she made to cover the glimpse of her décolletage only served to accentuate the deep cleavage. The gazes of the master and Sitiani were practically glued to Lumiamia. A dark glint flashed in their eyes, their voices growing husky. You are the little princess we hold in the palms of our hands. What does it matter if you never marry? We will cherish and protect you for a lifetime. Lumiamia was so thoroughly charmed that she blossomed with joy, letting out a delicate, tinkling laugh. The sight of the three of them flirting and bantering stirred the disciples already afflicted with the passion poison. The atmosphere grew increasingly charged and sultry. Everyone's breathing became ragged, inadvertently hastening the onset of the passion poison. The now ineffective cold spring water did nothing to cool the ardor of those three. Without the proper mental cultivation techniques to circulate their energy and expel the toxins, the bath only made them feel hotter and more agitated. Sitiani, whose cultivation was insufficient and his Tao heart unsteady, was the first to press himself against Lumiamiao. Lumiamiao's cheeks flushed with embarrassment. She reached out and tapped a finger against his chest, putting on a show of feigned resistance. Senior brother, please don't. Senior sister Lingxiao is watching. This only served to excite Sitiani even more. Ignoring Lumiamiao's cat-like scratches of protest, he cupped her face and kissed her deeply. The master frowned, initially intending to reprimand the pair for their behavior, but Lumiamiao had already pressed herself close to his side, gazing at him with dewy eyes. The corners flushed red, exuding an unconscious allure. Her cherry blossom pink lips parted slightly, the cloyingly sweet scent of peach blossoms growing more distinct. Master, I feel so unwell. Please, help me. Even the typically aloof master, upon witnessing this scene, had the last of his reason burned away. With a single wave of his hand, he shredded Lumiamiao's clothes to tatters. The three of them lost all sense of time and place, right there in the broad daylight. The scent of peach blossom essential oil stirred their desires. Even the surrounding disciples were affected, their minds unsteady, completely losing their reason. Ambiguous sounds echoed throughout the cold spring valley. Afraid of seeing something I shouldn't, I quickly averted my gaze. After carefully calculating the time once more, I immediately raised my hand to seal the cave abode with a barrier. Sure enough, the very next second, along with Lumiamiao's high-pitched and alluring voice, came the thunderous sound of footsteps powerful enough to shake the mountain itself. With the four elders gone, the demonic horde stormed into the spirit sword sect as if they were waltzing through an undefended courtyard. Countless demon soldiers surged up the mountain, the stench of blood mingled with demonic miasma, withering every plant along their path. Charge, tear the skin from their bones and grind those spirit sword sect cultivators to dust. The scout demons, led by the scent, rushed to the edge of the frigid pool, salivating at the sight of the three entangled figures. Lumiamiao, still lost in the throes of passion, was jolted from her haze of desire. Her dazed eyes met a pair of crimson ones, and she froze completely. A piercing shriek then tore through the air. Ah, demons are here. Chapter 2, 4, Lu Miao's sudden cry startled countless men on the brink, causing them to shudder and surrender completely. Even the revered master was no exception. His face flushed with embarrassment as he hastily pulled his clothes back on. It's merely a trifling demon, there's no need to be afraid, Miao. This is the third day in the Frostfall pool, my heart's venom has been purged. Dispatching these fiends will be child's play. The master instinctively drew his bonded sword, ready to channel his spiritual energy and cut down the vile demons where they stood, but when he checked his dantian, he found not a single wisp of spiritual energy remained in his entire body. His face was a mask of shock and disbelief as he stared at the sword in his hand. No, this can't be, the passion poison was cured, so why hasn't my spiritual energy returned? Someone's trembling voice spoke up. Our spirit sword sect cultivates the path of emotionlessness. Once the precepts are broken, all cultivation will be lost. Only then did the master remember the utterly absurd thing he had just done under the influence of lust. His face instantly drained of color. With the spiritual energy seal gone, the barrier erected by the divine artifact began to falter, cracking apart piece by piece. Sensing the disappearance of the oppressive aura, the demonic creature immediately bared its fangs and lunged forward. Several disciples, too slow to react, were caught in its maw and torn to shreds in the blink of an eye. Lu Miao, however, was well protected by her master and Si Tianyi, using magical artifacts to conceal their auras. The three of them remained undetected as demonic creatures passed by multiple times, seemingly completely unaware of their presence. Seeing this, the disciples hurriedly pleaded, Immortal Venerable, Senior Brother Tianyi, please, think of a way to save us. The four elders are unconscious, you're our only hope now. If Lu Miao hadn't caused trouble and enraged the four elders into unconsciousness, the disciples of the Spirit Sword sect wouldn't be left utterly defenseless like this. Yet the true culprit, Lu Miao, remained utterly unmoved. Instead, she cowered behind her master and Si Tianyi, trembling with fear. Master, senior brother, please don't leave me behind, I'm scared to be alone. Her master held her close to comfort her, but when he turned to look at the fleeing disciples, his tone was icy cold. Miao is too timid to be left alone. As disciples of the Spirit Sword sect, you'll have to figure out how to deal with these demonic creatures yourselves. Consider this a test of your abilities. Seeing their master and Si Tianyi single-mindedly protecting Lu Miao, coldly watching as the other disciples were devoured by the monsters, the remaining disciples felt a chill to the very core of their being. A hot-tempered disciple began screaming like a madman. Lu Miao, have you lost your mind? Isn't all of this your fault? It was you who trespassed into the forbidden realm, causing the entire sect to fall victim to the love poison, and then you selfishly monopolized the frigid spring that could cure us. Now you won't even let the immortal venerable and senior brother Tianyi lend us a hand, you heartless viper. Why didn't you just get devoured by the demons first? But the next instant, two spirit swords pierced through his chest. Blood gushed forth as he collapsed to the ground. The master and Si Tianyi simultaneously withdrew their swords, flicking away the blood droplets with disgust. Who gave you the right to insult Miao? Is it not perfectly normal for a young girl to be timid and in need of protection? If I hear one more bad word about Miao, I'll kill you myself before the demons even get the chance. The surviving disciples were utterly stunned. Demons were invading, yet the revered immortal master and senior brother they once looked up to had turned their blades on their own people. They're caught between a rock and a hard place. Someone finally remembered I existed, shouting as they fled. Where's senior sister Ling Xiao? If she were here, she'd protect us. Where is senior sister Ling Xiao? It's all your fault for driving her away from the Frostfall pool. 5. In the past, I truly would have risked my life to protect them. It was simply because I genuinely regarded every disciple of the Spirit Sword sect as my own family. I painstakingly taught them cultivation techniques, and when their progress stalled and they couldn't break through, I scoured the world for elixirs and rare treasures on their behalf, never seeking anything in return. Yet they took my kindness for granted, only showing me a friendly face when they needed something from me. Since when does the world work that way? I paid them no mind and instead started cheering on the monsters. Without their cultivation to rely on, the disciples soon ran out of steam. As the lingering poison of passion within them was ignited, a plume of dark blue flame erupted from their very chests. They instantly collapsed, writhing and screaming in agony, even leaping into the frigid pool in a desperate attempt to quench the searing pain. Alas, the pool's waters, tainted by Lu Miao's essential oils, had completely lost their efficacy. In their final moments, consumed by the agony of a burning heart, their eyes all snapped toward Lu Miao and her two companions, flashing with murderous intent. Without a second thought, they lunged. So that's their plan, to lure the demonic beasts over there. This spectacle of them turning on each other is simply too delightful to watch. I clapped my hands in glee, realizing for the first time that this crude hidden cave was the perfect vantage point for the show. Just as our master's magical artifact shattered under the relentless assaults of the demonic beasts, and the three of them were about to be devoured, a pitch-black rift tore through the air, unleashing an overwhelming, oppressive aura. The monstrous creatures, ferocious and bloodthirsty just moments before, instantly cowered like tame pets, prostrating themselves meekly on the ground. A man emerged from the rift, clad in black robes. His features strikingly handsome yet radiating a sinister, untamed air. His gaze settled on Lu Miao Miao and the other two, a cruel, menacing smile curling at the corner of his lips. I do not care for those who stand so boldly before me. Will you kneel of your own accord, or must I personally break your legs? I knew this man was the infamous demon sovereign, He Wujia, in my past life. Just before I was devoured by demonic beasts, I had caught a glimpse of him. My limbs were shattered, and my entire body was covered in festering wounds that had been left untreated. A monster was gnawing on my legs as he passed by me with cold indifference. Yet, a moment later, he turned back, met my fading gaze, and asked in astonishment, "You're still alive?" If not for the faintest rise and fall of my chest, anyone would have thought I was already a corpse. He Wujia dispatched the demonic creatures and then meticulously examined all of my wounds. He let out a sigh of regret. A natural sword heart, you truly had the makings of a cultivator. What a pity, your golden core was extracted, your spiritual roots are shattered, and even your sword bone has been forcibly stripped away. Who could possibly hate you this much? Had I arrived sooner, I might have been able to save you, but now, it's far too late. My consciousness faded. I tried countless times to open my mouth, but not a single word could escape. Only a solitary tear traced a weak path down my cheek. He Wujia himself closed my eyes with his own hands. Just before my breath left me completely, I heard his languid voice. If there is a next life, come and find this venerable one. I shall handle those grudges on your behalf. Consider it a moment of capricious mercy on my part. 6. I snapped out of my reverie just in time to see a terrifying wave of pressure radiate from He Wujia. It was like an invisible, massive hand that instantly slammed Lu Miao Miao and the other two firmly to the ground. The master and Si Tianyi had long since given all their defensive magical artifacts to Lu Miao Miao. Unable to withstand the immense pressure, they themselves coughed up a mouthful of blood, yet Lu Miao Miao didn't spare them a single glance. Her gaze was fixed solely on He Wujia, a flicker of infatuation, almost imperceptible, passing through her eyes. She masked this emotion perfectly, widening her almond-shaped eyes. She put on a show of stubborn defiance. A delicate and charming act of feigned resistance. So you're the demon lord, truly a bloodthirsty butcher, to have slaughtered so many innocent disciples of my spirit sword sect. Even if the spirit sword sect is reduced to just the few of us, I, Lu Miao Miao, will never submit to a great demon like you. He Wujia looked at her with keen interest. Oh, you'd rather die than yield. Seeing his reaction, a gleam lit up Lu Miao Miao's eyes. She knew she was on the right track. Suppressing the elation in her heart, she gave a light, defiant snort and emphasized, "Of course, good and evil have been irreconcilable since ancient times, and besides, I was raised and taught by the spirit sword sect. I loathe evil as one would a personal enemy. People like you, who slaughter the innocent without a second thought, are what I despise most." She was still waiting for He Wujia to take an interest in her, to play out some kind of forced possession fantasy with her. But the very next second, He Wujia's foot came down on her head. With just a slight press of force, he ground her entire face into the dirt. A mocking smile curled on the man's handsome face. A mere insect, who cares what you hate? The so-called #1 spirit sword sect under heaven, nothing but a pack of useless trash, unworthy of this venerable one's personal attention. Since only the three of you remain, you will all be taken back to the demon lair, only by keeping you alive, to suffer eternal torment. Will the cultivation world remember the disgrace I have bestowed upon you? With that, he turned and made to leave. Several demonic cultivators stepped forward to seize the three, also preparing to withdraw. The master's gaze swept over the 100 or so demonic cultivators present. Knowing escape was currently impossible, he could only send a voice transmission to Lu Miao Miao. Fortunately, Ling Xiao isn't here. As long as she gets away, she can send word to the other cultivation sects and muster a force to rescue us. All we need to do is wait quietly. But Lu Miao Miao's eyes darted, and she suddenly began to struggle violently. There are others. The spirit sword sect still has survivors. There are more than just the three of us who survived. There's a woman named Ling Xiao, not even our master, let alone Si Tianyi, expected Lu Miao Miao to give me away. Staring at her in utter shock, he exclaimed, Miao Miao, how could you? Lu Miao Miao ignored the disappointment and shock in their eyes, shouting recklessly, everything I said is true, I don't know where she's hiding now, but she's been poisoned with a love toxin, she can't have gone far, she's definitely hiding somewhere nearby, send people to find her, now. Upon hearing this, He Wujia didn't even turn his head, stepping once more into the fissure. The demonic cultivator restraining Lu Miao Miao knew she had angered the demon lord. Without hesitation, he slapped her twice across the face. Silence, who gave you permission to speak without the lord's command? As I watched the group disappear from sight, I found myself letting out an unconscious sigh of relief. Having gotten my fill of the drama, I stood up, thoroughly satisfied, but then I felt the warmth of a chest press against my back. Startled, I whipped my head around and came face to face with He Wujia's handsome features, which were almost touching mine. I was taken aback as his teasing voice rang out, well, was the show any good? 7. He Wujia gave me no chance to refuse, taking me back to the demon's lair as well. The only difference was, I was lodged in a side chamber. Lu Miao Miao and the other two were imprisoned in a water dungeon. It said that during the day, they were suspended in mid-air, a mere half-inch above a pool teeming with blood-sucking leeches. They had to muster every ounce of strength to curl their legs up, or else the leeches would latch on and drain nearly half the blood from their bodies. Then, in the chill of night, they would be lowered and shackled in the icy water, which rose right up to their necks. The leeches were replaced with piranhas, which would latch onto any living creature they saw moving. Even if they tried to control their movements, they couldn't stop their bodies from shivering uncontrollably from the cold. In just one night, their legs were gnawed down to nothing but bare, gleaming bone. The next morning, as they were hoisted from the pool, the skilled physician He Wujia had hired would arrive to heal the injuries they had sustained the day before. If these three still possessed their cultivation, this torment would have been nothing to them. But they had long since become cripples, stripped of all their cultivation, due to the effects of the passion poison and being seduced by Lu Miao Miao into breaking their vows. Repeating this cycle, it wasn't long before Lu Miao Miao completely broke down, begging for an audience with He Wujia. I had wanted to go see the spectacle earlier, but He Wujia decreed that I couldn't go anywhere until it was confirmed that all the passion poison in my body had been purged. I had no choice but to wait patiently for over half a month before I could go to the water dungeon, and only with him by my side, I hid in a corner and watched as he went in first. Though the master and Si Tianyi looked haggard, they still had the strength to glare with eyes full of hatred. Lu Miao Miao, however, couldn't endure a single second more of the torment. The moment he saw He Wujia, he began screaming frantically, Lord Demon Sovereign, by all accounts, I am your ally. You can't do this to me. If I hadn't schemed to infiltrate the secret realm and poisoned the entire spirit sword sect with the ancient love toxin, yearning's ash, how could you have slaughtered them all so easily? I'm nothing like these hypocritical righteous cultivators. I did it all to follow you. The master and Si Tianyi were completely stunned, as if they had been clubbed over the head. Miao Miao, what are you talking about? Miao Miao, what do you mean? Everything I did was to follow that utterly wicked and unforgivable demon, He Wujia. Lu Miao Miao snorted coldly, exactly what it sounds like. Back then, I only swallowed my pride and humored you all because I saw your cultivation was decent enough to be my pillars within the sect. All that effort I wasted, painting Ling Xiao as a fickle, vicious, and jealous woman just to steal you away from her. And now you two fickle-minded fools have ended up as useless cripples. Their once sweet and adorable junior sister had transformed into someone completely unrecognizable to them. The master and Si Tianyi were utterly devastated. The true meaning of Lu Miao Miao's words finally dawned on them, their faces instantly draining of all color. So, is Ling Xiao nothing like you described? Was it all just lies you fabricated? Lu Miao Miao wore an expression of utter impatience. Are you deaf? It's only because you swallowed my story so easily that my plan to destroy the spirit sword sect proceeded without a hitch. But you're all useless now, utterly worthless to me. Shut up, you useless wretch, don't speak to me. She then turned to He Wujia, her face full of desperate hope. Lord Demon Sovereign, for this plan, I even sacrificed my own virtue. Every word I say is the truth, you must believe me. He Wujia had absolutely no desire to engage with Lu Miao Miao. His gaze shifted to the corner, and he spoke with an unreadable tone, still watching. Haven't you seen enough? Lu Miao Miao didn't know who he was talking to, but a sense of foreboding settled in her heart. That foreboding was confirmed the moment she saw me step out from the corner and stand beside He Wujia. She was too shocked to continue trying to please He Wujia. even forgetting to take a step, bitten viciously by a blood-sucking insect. Her face contorted in pain as she shrieked, "Ling Xiao! What are you doing here? Even if you hadn't been caught, you'd be dying from the heart-scorching agony of the love poison. How can you be here, and standing beside the demon lord? How dare someone like you?" 8. In stark contrast to Lu Miamia's hysterics, after learning that everything that happened before was Lu Miamia's scheme to frame me, both my master and Si Tianyi were already consumed by guilt. Seeing me now, a strange, complex emotion flickered in their eyes. "Ling Xiao, oh Ling Xiao. You're safe, that's all that matters. Don't worry, we will find a way to rescue you from this demonic lair." "Rescue me?" I shot back. "Why should I leave? I'm not like you. You were captured as prisoners to be punished, but I was invited here as Yiwujia's friend." At the word friend, my master's face instantly darkened. "Ling Xiao, do you have any idea what you're saying? You actually consider a bloodthirsty fiend like Yiwujia a friend? If any righteous cultivator heard that, they'd brand you a demonic practitioner." "I'll pretend I didn't hear it this time, but don't you ever say that again." Si Tianyi also nodded repeatedly. "Exactly, now that we know it was all a misunderstanding, let's just put it behind us and start fresh. We are betrothed, after all. Once we return safely to the Spirit Sword sect, why don't we make it official?" Before I could even call him a delusional fool, Yiwujia made his move. His speed was astonishing. His waist sword had barely cleared its scabbard by an inch before a flash of blade light shot straight towards Si Tianyi. The next instant, Si Tianyi let out a roar of utter agony. A chunk of pink flesh fell from his mouth into the water, drawn by the scent of blood. The leeches churned the water in a frenzied dance, trembling in agony. He then heard Yiwujia's utterly emotionless voice ring out, "A tongue that cannot speak has no reason to exist." My master looked at me, hoping I would understand the sheer brutality of Yiwujia from this, completely ignoring Si Tianyi's terrified expression. I smiled and produced a pill from within my robes. "This is a pill that can cause one to fall into demonic cultivation. The one who consumes it will gain a great surge in cultivation, but will also suffer a chi deviation, become utterly corrupted, and turn into a demonic cultivator, hunted and reviled by all righteous cultivators. I'm giving you a choice. You can take it yourself, or you can force it upon someone else. Only the one who consumes it will receive my—" I hadn't even finished my sentence when Yiwujia tugged at my sleeve and gave a light, pointed cough. "With no other choice," I added reluctantly, "and earn the trust of both Yiwujia and myself. The remaining individuals can be left entirely to his discretion, to release or to execute, as he sees fit." Seeing the easy familiarity between Yiwujia and me, a pang shot through our master and Si Tianyi's hearts, their eyes clouding over with involuntary anguish. "I can't be bothered with them." After placing the elixir on the ground, he turned and left with Yiwujia. He only tossed out one final remark, "I'll leave you the night to think it over. I expect a satisfactory answer by tomorrow." That night, each of the three, harboring their own ulterior motives, pondered who should be the one to take the pill. But in the dead of night, a barrier silently enveloped the entire water dungeon, ensuring no sound could escape. The master's eyes snapped open, just in time to see the wall being smashed through, revealing a gaping hole. Several figures clad in white robes, unmistakably righteous cultivators, burst into the chamber. The elder at their head, upon seeing him, immediately moved to untie him and Si Tianyi. "Immortal Venerable, we came as soon as we received the message. We hope we're not too late. We have also located a divine artifact capable of restoring both your and Tianyi's cultivation. Once you have both recovered, we will storm the demon's lair and take the demon lord's head." The group exchanged a few more words in hushed tones, finalized a provisional battle plan, and prepared to depart under cover of night. Lu Miao grew frantic when she saw that neither her master nor Si Tianyi so much as glanced back in her direction. "Master, senior brother, you're not leaving me behind, are you? I'm your junior sister. I'm one of the righteous cultivators too. Everything I said before, it was all a ruse to buy time, to deceive that great demon. None of it was true. Please, I beg you, save me too." The master turned and cast a cold glance at Lu Miao before drawing his sword and severing the chains on her arms. Thinking his master had relented, Lu Miao scrambled out of the pool on all fours and reached out to clutch at the hem of his master's robe. He put on that pitiful look that always used to win their sympathy. "Master, I knew you cared for me the most," but with a flick of his sleeve, the master evaded Lu Miao's outstretched hand. His downcast eyes held not a trace of emotion. His tone utterly frigid. "For the sake of our past master-disciple bond, I have severed these chains for you. Whether you stay or flee, or how you escape this den of demons, is no longer any concern of mine. Our bond as master and disciple ends here. From now on, if we meet again, you will only ever be an eternal enemy of the Spirit Sword sect." With that, he turned and left without a shred of mercy. Several cultivators following in his wake, he left Lu Miao Miao alone, battered and bruised. Kneeling wretchedly on the ground, the tears she had forced out earlier in a pitiful act now fell in earnest, large drops splattering down, her hands gradually clenched into fists, her fingertips scraping against the ground until they left streaks of blood. Yet, Lu Miao Miao seemed utterly oblivious to the pain, a strange, choked laugh gurgling from her throat. "Fine, fine, fine, since you show no mercy today, don't blame me for showing none in the future." She slowly tilted her head back, and the moonlight streaming through the cave entrance illuminated the ferocious expression on her face. After a long moment, she reached out and picked up the pill lying quietly on the ground. 9. He Wujia told me the instant our master and Si Tianyi fled, I didn't send anyone to hunt them down, nor did I concern myself with Lu Miao Miao, who vanished into the demonic lair after that night. After all, He Wujia was throwing a grand banquet to celebrate his massacre of the Spirit Sword sect, a blatant slap in the face to the righteous cultivators. I, too, had to prepare for my attendance. On the day of the feast, all the demonic cultivators of the unorthodox path arrived as invited. Countless people raised their glasses in a toast. "Hail the demon lord for annihilating the Spirit Sword sect. We've long been sick of those hypocrites and their holier-than-thou act." After several rounds of drinks, the demonic cultivators were thoroughly drunk. However, the protected barrier of the demonic lair was breached. A deafening roar erupted as countless righteous cultivators stormed in, swords already swinging. The perfectly fine banquet was thrown into utter chaos. My master and Si Tianyi, leading several cultivators at the half-step to deification realm, charged straight toward He Wujia and me. I was about to draw my sword to defend myself when they halted right before me. Gazing at me with unprecedented gentleness and caution, "Ling Xiao, we meant what we said. We've come to take you back to the Spirit Sword sect." I frowned. As I recall, I made myself perfectly clear last time. I don't need your salvation, and I won't be going back with you. The expressions of the sect master and Si Tianyi shifted several times. Finally, their gazes turned viciously towards He Wujia, and they ground out through clenched teeth. "Ling Xiao is still young. His mind is not yet resolute. It's all because of you, you fiend. You bewitched her, making her willing to stay in this ghastly, horrifying den of evil instead of returning with us. We'll slay you right now. Once you're dead, we'll take Ling Xiao back and teach her the difference between good and evil. There will still be time." As soon as the words were spoken, the group of cultivators summoned their life-bound magical artifacts, unleashing their full power in a concerted assault against He Wujia. A kaleidoscope of spiritual energies flashed, and the sharp, clashing sounds of weapons meeting weapons rang out. Without a moment's hesitation, I drew my sword and charged at Si Tianyi. It never crossed Si Tianyi's mind that I would side with He Wujia. He looked at me, a flicker of anguish passing through his eyes. "Ling Xiao, have you forgotten the bond we once shared? You're completely blinded by He Wujia. He's the madman who slaughtered our entire Spirit Sword sect," I retorted, bewildered. "So what? In my past life, I dedicated myself heart and soul to the sect, yet they cast me aside like a worn-out shoe. It was He Wujia, the monster they paint as utterly irredeemable, who offered me the last shred of warmth before I died. Is the line between good and evil, as defined by the world, truly so clear? Does it even matter what is righteous and what is wicked?" I spoke no more, swinging my sword to strike at Si Tianyi once again. He had no wish to cross blades with me. Fighting a retreating battle as he fell back, a familiar, coquettish voice suddenly rang out, "Master, senior brother, have you come to save me?" Lu Miao Miao had appeared there at some point, unnoticed. She was still wearing the disciple robes of the Spirit Sword sect, her face deathly pale and her expression utterly terrified. Stumbling as she spoke, she moved closer to us, seeking refuge behind our master and Si Tianyi just as she used to. Those around her momentarily let their guard down at Lu Miao Miao's harmless appearance, frowning and shouting reprimands. "Which sect's disciple are you? Blades and swords have no eyes. Get out of here at once." Lu Miao Miao's eyes were rimmed red as she nodded repeatedly in agreement. Yet, just as she was about to reach me, she suddenly drew a dagger from her sleeve and lunged straight at me, shouting, "Ling Xiao, die." I gave her a cold glance, neither dodging nor evading. Seeing this, Si Tianyi's pupils contracted sharply, and without a second thought, he threw himself in front of me. The dagger pierced through his heart, and the demonic energy upon it rapidly spread through his entire body. His face turned ashen, and without uttering a single word, he collapsed to the ground. Lu Miao Miao, looking utterly deranged, drew her dagger and charged at me once more. My master was forced to disengage from He Wujia momentarily, placing himself before me to knock the dagger from Lu Miaomiao's hand. Frowning, he roared in anger, "Lu Miaomiao, have you lost your mind? You've already slaughtered countless disciples of our spirit sword sect, and now you dare to lay a hand on Lingxiao as well. You are utterly beyond redemption. In that case, I shall cleanse our sect of your filth and execute you, you vile wretch." The moment his words fell, a long sword pierced straight through his chest. My master turned his head in disbelief, meeting my expression of utter indifference. "Lingxiao." I wiped the spattered blood from my face in disgust, drawing my sword and retreating several steps. He Wujia, who had been toying with a few white-bearded elders like a cat with mice, immediately took flight and left the demonic cavern's main hall, ignoring the wound on his chest. My master hastily raised his sword, intent on giving chase. Lu Miaomiao, however, clung desperately to his sleeve, a strange smile curling on her lips. "Master, are you abandoning me? Are you going to cast me aside again? When you took me as your disciple, didn't you promise to cherish and protect me for a lifetime? Now is the time for you to fulfill that promise." The next instant, a tremendous explosion erupted as spiritual energy and demonic aura were compressed to their absolute limit. The grand hall of the demonic lair was instantly reduced to rubble. Everyone who failed to escape was incinerated into dust by Lu Miaomiao's self-detonation, leaving not a single trace behind. So, this was the ending she had chosen. She knew her cultivation foundation was weak. Even after falling into demonic ways to boost her power, she could never inflict any significant harm on both her master and Si Tianyi. That's why they used me as bait to lure them in. The righteous cultivator's initiative to assault the demonic lair this time did not yield the desired results. They also suffered immense losses in combat power, with heavy casualties. I reckon it will take at least a century of recuperation before they can regroup and recover their strength. He Wujia and I decided to take this opportunity to travel the mortal world. I deliberately lagged half a step behind, following in his shadow. "He Wujia, do you still remember something? Like that promise you made to me so casually in our past life? Why else would he go out of his way to help me like this?" He let out a low, drawn-out chuckle, his tone laced with the same playful mockery as when he'd first spoken to me. Who knows, I wasn't discouraged. After all, we had all the time in the world. I'll get the answer from him one day. The end. That's all for the first story. Don't go away. The next one is even more exciting. My husband gave all the ration coupons to his childhood sweetheart, but wouldn't let me and the kids go over for a meal. You need to have some backbone. Yet, for a bowl of chicken soup for Qingmei, he swallowed his pride and begged everyone he knew. I was so famished that I stumbled and fell into the river. When I was pulled ashore, I found myself back in the year of that blind date. My mother begged me through her tears, "I won't force you to go on blind dates anymore. If you like that college boy, just marry him." "No, I want to go on the blind date." When they fished me out of the water, I was still shivering. My mother was beside herself, wailing and slapping her own face. So, I had gone back to being 18, in my refusal to go on the arranged dates, all to marry the university student Guzhili. I had jumped into the river in a desperate act. Guzhili married me, if only to save face. On the surface, we were the picture of a loving couple. He, the educated one, worked outside the home, while I managed the household chores. Our days seemed sweet. Behind our backs, he gave all the food ration coupons to the orphan girl next door. He kept her well fed, with fair skin and a plump, healthy glow. My 3-year-old son, little treasure, and I were so hungry we saw stars. We went to the neighbors to do odd jobs, just to beg for a meal. When Guzhili came home and saw this, his eyes burned with rage. "In the Gu family, we can go hungry, but we will never lose our dignity. Is this how you conduct yourself as the lady of the Gu household?" Li Bao, after his scolding, he pulled a small, exquisitely wrapped packet of pastries from his pocket and thrust it into my arms. All warmth had vanished from his gentle face, leaving only a chill as his lips formed the words, "All you ever think about is eating. After all that, you're still not full." I recognized it. This was Qingmei's favorite brand of pastry, but with hunger taking over, I forcefully pushed down the ache in my heart. "My child," and I devoured it like a rare delicacy, even carefully licking the wrapper clean. Guzhili's face twisted in disgust. "I may be uneducated, but I still have my pride." I covered little Bao's mouth, coaxing him to eat more slowly. "No talking while eating or sleeping, or father will get angry." But in the middle of the night, the child cried out that he was hungry. Guzhili wasn't home. He'd gone to Qingmei's place again. She was ill once more. I stumbled out in a rush to find something to eat. Who would have thought that with one misstep into the river, I was sent back to the past? After hearing what I said, Mother cried even more pitifully. "Oh, my dear child, you've lost your mind." I finished my 7th bowl of rice, and Mother was utterly stunned. With red-rimmed eyes, she served me an 8th bowl. I instinctively called out for Xiaobao, telling him to eat too. But even when I went back in time, Xiaobao was gone, sobbing. I hugged my mother and cried, "My child is gone." She shakily covered my mouth. "A proper young lady shouldn't speak so freely. Guess who I've invited over?" Gu Zhili arrived with a bag of fruit. He had fair skin and the gentle, scholarly air of a bookish man. His lips were thin, his teeth white, and his eyes held the cool, detached gaze of a scholar. "Li Bao, your mother sent me. It was the same in my past life, after I jumped into the river." Mother immediately summoned Gu Zhili to our home to discuss marriage. I asked for nothing else, only him. Word has spread all over the county town. In this lifetime, I love only Gu Zhili. He was also pressured into marrying me, just like in my past life. Mother took his hand and discussed the wedding date. I walked right over and returned the fruit to Gu Zhili. He was taken aback, frowning as he called out to me. "What do you mean by this? I will not marry you. Get out of my house. Don't you dare regret this." Gu Zhili, a man of immense pride, immediately stood up and left without a backward glance. Yet, that very pride of his could be cast aside for his childhood sweetheart. When the rice jar at home was empty, Qingmei, just recovered from a cold, longed for a bowl of meat broth. With the family's wages not yet arrived, I saw Gu Zhili going door to door, begging for oil and meat, all just to brew a pot of hot soup for his little Qingmei, as he bowed to plead. His once straight and slender back curved over, his shirt taut against the line of his spine. "Thank you, I'll pay you back, I promise." He turned around and saw the two of us, my mother and me, peeking at him through the crack in the door. Gu Zhili's ears flushed red. He came back that evening and gave me a fierce scolding. "You know Tingting's situation. She became an orphan because she saved my parents. I promised them I would always treat her as family." "How nice of you." Bringing little Bao to see his father's humiliation. "What kind of mother are you?" My mouth opened and closed, but not a single word came out for the longest time. "But the child and I, we're your family too." Mom snapped me out of my reverie. "What's this spat with Xiaogu about? You keep saying you don't want to go on blind dates, but that young man from the steel mills family has good prospects, and he's handsome too." I agreed without hesitation. "I'll go. Who said I wouldn't, in this life? I just want a full belly. I don't need any damn romance." I remember, back when I was with Gu Zhili and we never knew where our next meal was coming from, there was a family in town who ate like kings every single day. It was the very matchmaking prospect I had missed out on back then. Seeing that I was willing to go on the date, Mother immediately shoved some cash into my hand. "Go and get yourself some new clothes, right now. Even if it's just to spite Xiaogu. A young lady should always look neat and presentable." A pang of hunger hit me, so I used some ration coupons to get a chicken leg. After eating, I walked into a nearby shop and picked out a floral patterned dacron dress. It was cheap and looked lovely. Just as I pulled out the cash, a pair of hands snatched the clothes away. The girl's cheeks were full and round, a clear sign she'd been doted on. She was Gu Zhili's childhood sweetheart, Lu Ting, holding the dress up to herself. She said to Gu Zhili beside her, "I want this one, it's so pretty." Gu Zhili's gaze was fixed intently on Qingmei's face, completely unaware of my presence. He smiled gently. "All right, it suits you perfectly, let's get it. This young lady was here first, you should ask her." The shopkeeper's reminder finally made the two of them look my way. Gu Zhili's face instantly turned cold. "Are you following me?" Lu Ting shrank closer to him and called out timidly, "Hello, sisterly, if you like it. You can take it, I'll give it to you." Frowning, Gu Zhili snatched the dress and shoved it into Qingmei's arms. "She's already pitiable enough, and you're still taking Tingting's things. That's going too far." I was full and in a great mood, so I asked the shopkeeper to wrap up another dress for me. "Oh, if you like it, go ahead and buy it." But Lu Ting took a liking to the new one I had just picked out. "Zhili, this one seems more fitting for the competition." Gu Zhili looked at me and extended his hand. "Be reasonable, Li Bao. This competition means a lot to Tingting, but this dress is really important to me too." He let out an almost imperceptible sigh. "Don't make a scene. How about I take you to the park this weekend?" That was the olive branch Gu Zhili offered me, in my past life, just to go on dates with him. I let his childhood sweetheart bully me time and again, because I considered her family, too. Yet, on the very first night of my marriage to Gu Zhili, Lu Ting called my husband away to catch a mouse in her house. I was left alone, keeping vigil by the red wedding candles until dawn. But I loved Gu Zhili so much, I could only think that I had failed in my duties as a wife. Now, As Gu Zhili reached for the dress, I instinctively slapped his hand away. I said I want it. Gu Zhili was angry too. He furrowed his handsome brows, soothing Lu Ting in his arms. What could you possibly be wearing that's more important than Ting Ting's dance performance? This will affect her entire future. Don't be so unreasonable. I clutched the package in my hands protectively. This is for a matchmaking meeting. Is my own marriage not important? Gu Zhili suddenly fell silent, his lips tightening as he released his hold on Qingmei. What blind date? How come I didn't know about this? Lu Ting let out a snort of laughter. Brother Gu, my sister must be joking. The whole town knows she jumped into the river for you. Who else would dare to have her? She's definitely just trying to get a rise out of you. Don't I know how a girl's mind works? After speaking, she covered her mouth, her doe-like eyes blinking. Was I too honest? Sorry, sis, for giving away your little secret. Gu Zhili also wore a look of complete understanding, his face expressionless. He said coldly, Li Bao, let me be honest with you. Dresses just don't suit you. You're too broad in the shoulders and thick around the middle. It's a waste of good fabric, and that scar on your calf is rather unsightly. The scar is where our story began. Gu Zhili saved my life. When the mudslide hit, my leg was pinned under a rock. A group of young people were scrambling down the slope in panic. But one of them went against the flow, pushing through the crowd. That was the first time I met Gu Zhili. He didn't look like a farmer, with pale, slender arms, yet he mustered all his strength to move the rock, grabbed my hand, and we ran. Run, don't worry about me. To save me, he injured his right arm, and it took months to heal. I have a scar on my calf, too. The doctors all said the scar is permanent. I was so self-conscious that I stopped wearing skirts. Gu Zhili heard and sent me an ointment. There was a note tucked in with it. Since I can't read well, I had someone read it to me. Comrade Li Bao, looks are just superficial. Your health comes first. That scar is a badge of your courage. My cheeks flushed as I thought he liked me too. I never cared for reading and could barely recognize a handful of characters, yet I spent months copying text just to be with him. I even carefully traced the strokes of his name. The wobbly, childish handwriting made him the butt of his companions' jokes. Gu Zhili, looks like you've got an admirer. With a stern face, Gu Zhili warned me to come around less often in the future. I still loved to prop my chin in my hands and watch him read and write. I didn't leave, smiling, until Gu Zhili's neck flushed red. Soon after, his childhood sweetheart also came to this town. Lu Ting put her arm around Gu Zhili, beaming with a bright, unguarded smile. We grew up together. Brother Gu has always looked out for me. You know, he's got the biggest sweet tooth, especially for the things I make. Gu Zhili's gaze also settled on the girl. He told us to get along and to take good care of his childhood friend. To win Gu Zhili's favor, I often went to Lu Ting to learn how to cook. She would accidentally bump my face with a piece of firewood, then apologize in tears. The clothes I hung out to dry for Gu Zhili would often end up dropped in the mud by her. I couldn't help but ask Gu Zhili if his sister disliked me, but he gave me a strange look. No wonder Ting Ting said that about you. You really are too petty. You should read more books. In my past life, I was the fool who tore apart a match made in heaven. In this life, I'll step aside and let them be together. On the day of the blind date, I didn't wear a skirt. I wore trousers to hide the scar on my calf. We agreed to meet at the video rental store. From a distance, I spotted my date. Dressed in a smart little suit, Lin Ao, the eldest son of the old steel mill director, he carried 2 bottles of hard-to-find soda and an armful of food. With his striking features, handsome and poised, he radiated an irrepressible, youthful vigor. In a past life, I saw him in the newspaper. It was the announcement of his death. In my memory, Lin Ao walked with a limp, due to this old injury. After rescuing the employees, Lin Ao was pinned under a steel plate and couldn't free himself. As the person approached, he smiled warmly. Hello, Li Bao. They walked and talked, drawing quite a few glances from people along the way. They whispered among themselves, isn't that the girl from the Li family who jumped into the river? How shameless, she's already latched onto someone else. I heard she got pregnant and threatened to drown herself to force him to marry her. Having known hunger, I'd grown a thicker skin. I simply asked Lin Ao if we were still going to eat later. If you're not going, I'm heading home. Well, with a bad reputation, it's no surprise the blind date fell through. Lin Ao, however, charged into the crowd with his neck stiff and head held high. Show some respect. She was doing a good deed that day. My old yellow dog was the one Li Bao pulled from the river. If you don't believe me, come to my house and ask the dog yourself. But Comrade Li is far too modest and didn't want to make a fuss. Who would have thought it would lead to such lies being spread about him? Well then, Tell me this, who's the eyewitness? I was taken aback. I suddenly remembered that when I jumped into the river, the only person there was my mother, but when she went to find Gu Zhili, Lu Ting overheard it. The gossip started to spread. Lin Ao turned back and gave me a resolute look. You saved my family's dog, our savior. From now on, you are also a benefactor of the Lin family. The old factory director's family had a good reputation, so when Lin Ao spoke, everyone was inclined to believe him. Oh, I see, that girl from the Li family is a bit rough around the edges, but she wouldn't jump into a river over some guy. Exactly, she's always doing good deeds. I'm not sure why Lin Ao stepped in to help me out. After quelling the rumors, he quickly walked over to my side, his face stern. So, how'd I do? Pretty cool, right? I burst into a fit of giggles. You're a natural-born businessperson, what a silver tongue. Lin Ao handed over a handkerchief, his ears burning red, our hands brushed, and we pulled apart as if shocked by electricity. From a distance, Gu Zhili stood there, his gaze fixed on me. The plastic bottle in his hand was crushed out of shape by his grip. I was wondering whether to have Jianbing or Rujiamo with Lin Ao. I was just about to ask Lin Ao, but he took a step back. Li Bao, Gu Zhili isn't good enough for you. But I respect your choice. If you like him, then go. I can watch the tapes by myself just fine. Eating chips and soda alone doesn't make me lonely. A lot of people knew about my pursuit of Gu Zhili. No wonder Lin Ao would think that way, all by himself. He grabbed a soda, hugged a box of fried chicken and fries, looked back every few steps, and finally walked into the screening room with his head down, pitiful, deliciously fragrant. Gu Zhili gave a cold laugh and turned to leave as well. But his steps were deliberately slow, as if he was waiting for someone. You're not waiting for me, are you? I swallowed hard. Was there even a choice to make? I turned and ran straight to Lin Ao's side. A life of going hungry with no one to care for me. No thanks. Gu Zhili walked deliberately slowly. He knew Li Bao would surely run after him to make him stay. The girl's footsteps drew nearer. Someone tugged at the hem of his clothes, and Gu Zhili cleared his throat. Ha, I knew you'd follow me. But when I turned to look, it was a girl I didn't recognize. She handed me a flyer. Sir, there's a new romance film playing. You should bring your sweetheart. Girls are bound to love this. Gu Zhili looked around in shock for Li Bao, but she was nowhere to be seen. He fumbled to catch the flyer, which featured a man and a woman gazing at each other affectionately. Not knowing what madness had seized him, Gu Zhili ran toward the room where the tape was playing. In the dim light, I saw Li Bao sitting with that guy from the blind date. Their shoulders were barely inches apart. How utterly inappropriate. She looked down, eating her fried chicken, a smile so wide it made her dimples dance. Her eyes were brimming with happiness and affection. Just looking at the food, her fondness for this strange man seemed to overflow. Gu Zhili wanted to rush in and hit the man, but reason held him back. Li Bao was definitely putting on an act to spite him. It must be this way. That's just a silly little girl's game. How old is he to be taking it so seriously? Take a deep breath. I can't lose my composure. Li Bao is taking advantage of the fact that he likes her. She's getting completely out of hand. What kind of man is he if he's already being bossed around by his wife before they're even married? Li Bao is sure to come and make amends at the town dance in a few days. After the blind date, I was very pleased with Lin Ao. He's perfect in every way, except for his short life, but he's just too good, so I want to help him. Good people deserve to live a long life. After dinner, it was quite noisy outside. I was getting ready to wash up and go to bed when Mom reminded me, Li Bao, didn't you make plans to go to the town dance hall with someone tonight? You've been pestering me every day to remind you, and you even wrote it on the calendar. She took out that polyester checkered dress. Come on, wear this, it looks so lovely and suits you perfectly. I remembered that before jumping into the river, I had already asked Gu Zhili to be my dance partner. Having been reborn, I had long forgotten about this matter. Mom, I'm going back to sleep. Can't be bothered to go. She sighed and tore the page off the calendar. July 23rd went by so fast. Tomorrow is already. I bolted upright in bed. That was the day of the stampede on the street near the dance hall. It finally came back to me. How Lin Ao ended up with a limp. I threw on a dress in a frantic hurry and dashed out the door, shoes barely on. The shops along the street were all hung with lanterns. Young men and women gathered together, ready to enter the ballroom. Gasping for breath, I scanned the crowd, searching for Lin Ao. What on earth was he doing here in the middle of the night? A figure stood at the entrance to the hall. He wore only a crisp, clean shirt, his hair meticulously combed. Gu Zhili glanced at his wristwatch, then at me, his tone flat. I thought you weren't going to show. It's about to start, let's go. His fingers felt warm, almost hot, as they closed around my palm. I pulled my hand away and quickly apologized. Guzhili, I have something to do, you should find someone else. Guzhili's hand stilled in his pocket. He clenched his jaw. Li Bao, what's your game, playing hard to get? Think carefully, I don't like people who are overly delicate. If you keep throwing a tantrum, we shouldn't see each other anymore. Guzhili finished speaking in one breath, the tip of his nose turning a little red. Sure enough, he saw the girl's expression shift as she reached out her hand. The weight lifted from Guzhili's heart. He knew it. She liked him. It was all an act before. The mask has slipped now, hasn't it? He reached out, wanting to take the girl's hand. I shook off Guzhili's unwelcome hand and strode straight into the ballroom. Lin Ao was chatting with a girl, his expression utterly focused. I stopped across from them, a pang of bitterness in my heart. On the day our blind date ended, he even promised to cook me a big, home-style pork knuckle. Looks like that's a no-go. Guess we'll just have to crash his wedding and pack up some extra food. The girl poked him, then pointed at me. Lin Ao looked over and exclaimed in surprise, you actually came. Care to dance with me? I declined immediately. Your date is right there. Isn't this inappropriate? Comrade Lin, have some self-respect. The girl shrieked, sis, that's not true. I was just asked to help prepare your gift. Lin Ao covered his sister's mouth and pushed her aside. My dear Bao, you look absolutely stunning today. We're a perfect match, made for each other. I used the hem of my skirt to cover the scar on my leg. Lin Ao's eyes widened in astonishment as he exclaimed, good heavens. That's such a large area. You must have been incredibly brave when it happened. This pattern looks like a butterfly. The brilliant light in his eyes made mine sting with unshed tears. Of course, how could anyone who truly cares for you be bothered by a mere scar? Hand in hand, we stepped onto the dance floor. In my past life, I danced this with Guzhili, but when I stepped on his shoe, his face turned cold. How clumsy of you. So, I was dancing with extreme caution. But Lin Ao just lowered his head and winked. What are you doing? I'm not some fragile little doll. The noise outside grew louder. Lin Ao wasn't caught up in the danger. His legs are perfectly fine, but I have a bad feeling about this. If I told him a stampede was about to happen outside, would Lin Ao even believe me? Would he think I've lost my mind? Summoning my courage, I leaned in and whispered a fabricated dream into his ear. It's not safe out there, for children, for the elderly. Can't we do something to stop it? You probably think I'm crazy. A flicker passed through Lin Ao's eyes before he smiled and led me off the dance floor. Of course I believe you. Getting to dance with you is nothing short of a dream come true. Anyway, we'll have plenty of chances in the future. Everyone made it home safely before the clock struck midnight. Lin Ao and I sat back to back at the entrance to the broadcasting room. Just moments before, he had used the PA system. His voice clear and authoritative, to direct the crowd and clear a path. I was feeding him updates on the situation in the surrounding streets. The staff who arrived on the scene scolded us for causing a disturbance, though it was more of a well-meaning warning. When Lin Ao and I went downstairs, Guzhili had already been standing there for a long time. His hair was damp with the night mist, and his face was darker than the moonlight. Li Bao, let's go home, your mother sent me, on the way. I kept glancing at my watch. At midnight, Lin Ao told me to look up at the sky. There would be a surprise. When the sky filled with blooming fireworks, my heart couldn't help but soften. But Guzhili squeezed my hand until it hurt. You like this kind? He didn't say a word the whole way, just held my hand, and I couldn't pull free. I'm home, let go. Looking utterly dejected, he forced a smile. Li Bao, I won't be any less than him in the future. I'm educated, and I can give you a good life too. Don't be so materialistic. All that is just an illusion. I only asked one question, if I wanted some meat broth, but we had nothing left in the pantry. Would you go door to door begging for it? He opened his mouth. Bao. There's no way this could happen. Are you hungry? I'll go get some food right now. A scholar must have integrity. One cannot forsake their dignity for a mere morsel of food. Yet, in his past life, for his childhood sweetheart, Guzhili did exactly that. I closed the door. Guzhili's figure lingered outside for most of the night. In the end, he still left. Lin Ao slapped his thigh and declared he was going to study abroad. After saying that, he took the ring from the box and, mimicking people on TV, got down on one knee. Li Bao, would you come with me? It was all so sudden. I can barely read or write. I only just learned Lin Ao's name recently. Going out like this would shame the family. Forget it. Let's not waste the money. Lin Ao is stubborn. Once he sets his mind on something, nothing can change it. The tickets are bought. What am I supposed to do if you stay here and run off with someone else? Even if you don't go to school, just stay with me, okay? He brought over a few books. Just learn a little of the foreign language for now. You have plenty of time to improve, and I'll be right here with you all the way. If you don't learn to read, you won't even be able to understand a menu when the time comes. You'll go hungry. Inspired by Lin Ao's words, I painstakingly mastered a great many Chinese characters. My bedtime routine became nothing but memorizing texts and studying the language. Every night before bed, he would call to encourage me. You're doing amazing, you're so impressive. With that kind of determination, you can succeed at anything. I was overjoyed to tears when I finally got my junior high school diploma at my age, and I hugged Lin Ao. God only knows how much hair I've lost over this. Lin Ao's school schedule changed last minute, so he had to leave before me. My dear Li Bao, I love you. I was still trying to figure out what he meant by that foreign phrase when the plane roared off into the sky. What arrived even sooner than next month was Lu Ting, with red-rimmed eyes. She said Gu Zhili was injured, would soon be leaving town, and wanted to see me one last time. Sister Li, please don't be so cruel. When I arrived at the courtyard, Gu Zhili was nowhere to be seen. Lu Ting waved her hand and summoned a few street thugs. Make sure this bitch never thinks straight again. Why should she get to live the good life? Just before the club came down, someone threw themselves over me. Shielding me completely, Gu Zhili grunted in pain and collapsed to the ground. With a shriek, Lu Ting fled with the others, abandoning the bamboo horse on the ground. My mind went blank, and it was still ringing even after I carried him to the hospital. Family member, he's unconscious. Please come and sign the consent form. You'll need to take good care of your husband during this time. My mind was a jumbled mess, and I didn't explain our relationship. Gu Zhili lay quietly in bed, a bandage wrapped around his head, his breathing steady. I was supposed to go find Lin Ao tomorrow morning. Given this situation, it looks like I'm going to have to break that promise. Lin Ao was upset for a whole day, but called long distance the very next morning. Li Bao, hire someone to look after him. Don't go see him all the time. Gu Zhili is a sneaky one. I sent you a postcard. It might take a while to arrive, but you have to write back. I hadn't expected him to be so persistent. I agreed with a laugh, promising I wouldn't go see Gu Zhili again. Just as I was about to leave, Gu Zhili woke up. He took my hand, his voice hoarse and strained. Li Bao, are you hurt? I was fine, but Gu Zhili had been lying in the hospital for half a month and had only just regained consciousness. The Gu family got in touch and asked me to look after him. It's too far for them to come right away, since he got hurt because of me. I asked politely, shall I hire a helper to take care of you? A flicker of light passed through Gu Zhili's eyes. Li Bao, could you stay with me for a while? My head still hurts so much, it really aches. The words of refusal died in my throat. I actually managed to put on a few pounds while Gu Zhili was recovering from his injury. I pushed the wheelchair, following his wishes, going out for sun every day and having 3 meals plus a late-night snack. The one who caused all this trouble didn't even come to see him for a single day. Gu Zhili said he would make up for Lu Ting's mistake and was willing to give everything he had. Ting has been good to me. I owe her. Even at a time like this, Gu Zhili still shows favoritism toward his childhood friend. I praised him, saying, you really are a wonderful brother Gu. He didn't catch my meaning, his ears turning red at the tips. It's fine if you call me that, he said. After getting hit on the head, Gu Zhili's brain might have actually been damaged. In the middle of the night, he poked me awake, wanting to go to the screening room to catch a midnight movie. The ad said the evening would be the best part. Gu Zhili described what the girl handing out flyers had said. His eyes sparkled in the moonlight, and I thought to myself, let this be the last time. In our past life, we never got to see a movie together. From our seats, we watched the man and woman on screen kiss each other. Gu Zhili's throat tightened, and he covered my eyes. Don't look. Even though we already had a child together, Gu Zhili's face was now flushed bright red. It seems we still have feelings for each other. On the way, Gu Zhili got cold, so I urged him to go home and get a coat. He was changing and washing up next door. Bored, I looked around the room. Everything here feels so familiar to me. In my past life, when Gu Zhili went out to work, the children and I would wait right here for him to come home. A piece of paper had fallen under the desk, out of habit. I picked it up and tidied the desk, honestly, always leaving things lying around. As I put it back in the drawer, I saw a thick stack of letters that had never been sent. I couldn't read back then, so I had never really looked inside Gu Zhili's drawer. On the envelope, it was addressed to Li Bao. My heart clenched. I dreamed we had a child. I must be out of my mind. How could I ever let you and the child go hungry? In the dream, Ting Ting said your cooking was so poor that you used up all the ration coupons. Give it to her, and she'll deliver the meal to your home. Did she lie to me? There must be some misunderstanding here, but nothing has happened yet. Li Bao will come to like me again. Looking back, the earliest letter was dated the day of the mudslide, the day he saved me. Every few days, there was a letter written to me. It was like a diary. Gu Zhili had filled an entire drawer with them. I remember. After we got married, he wouldn't let me touch the wooden chest. You can't even read, don't bother looking. I felt a little dazed. Did Gu Zhili ever have feelings for me, too? So why not love me a little more? When I came back, I acted as if nothing had happened. Looking at the tidy desk, he naturally called me by my nickname. Your eyes look red. Do you need an extra layer? I'm heading out now. Comrade Gu, I'm going to spend time with my fiancé. It's best for men and women to maintain some distance. His shoulders tensed, and he said hoarsely, what are you talking about? Nothing's settled yet. Lin Ao isn't the right person for you. You need to think this through more carefully. Think it over again. Tell me what I did wrong, and I'll change. Please, look at me again. I shook my head. Have you remembered something? The river was freezing that day. I was starving, and Xiao Guai was starving too. What will become of my child when I'm gone, with no mother to care for them? Gu Zhili's eyes reddened. He knelt down before me and slapped himself across the face several times, choking back sobs. He grabbed the hem of my pants as I tried to leave. I snatched it away without a shred of mercy. Lin Ao sent me a postcard, the Eiffel Tower, and parks of every color. His language was playful, sprinkled with a few foreign phrases, like he was speaking in riddles. Is this the pointy tower you wanted to see? The view's not bad. Looking at the materials and construction, I could have a small-scale model made for you back at the factory, a miniature version. Don't forget to write back. Gu Zhili was always so busy back then. He asked me to focus on taking care of the home. Whenever I go on a business trip, I always end up giving half of the local specialties I bring back to Qingmei. What's left is for me and the child. The child keeps pestering me to go after seeing some travel photos from outside. His favorite thing is an Eiffel Tower puzzle that Gu Zhili once gave him. Little Bao once said that when he grows up, he'll take me to see it. As I was writing the reply, I suddenly paused. Wait, I've never discussed these things with Lin Ao. How would he know? I took my plane ticket, ready to set off and find Lin Ao to get an answer. People on the street were whispering to each other. I heard someone threw themselves into the river near town. What could that college student have been so troubled about? It's almost winter, and he jumped in wearing just a shirt. He couldn't even swim, and now he's still in there, refusing to come out. Word is, he was driven to it by a broken heart. When they saw me, their expressions turned speculative. By the time we arrived, Gu Zhili, deathly pale, was already being dragged from the water. His lips were trembling. It's so cold. It must have been awful for you back then. It was the first time I had ever seen Gu Zhili lose his composure, crying until the whites of his eyes were streaked with red. I've nearly drowned twice, once for him, and once for the child we shared. People around us were casting curious glances our way. The gossipy ones were already pleading Gu Zhili's case. Li Bao, a man's pride is his most precious possession. He's gone down on his knees for you like this. Give him a chance. Where else are you going to find a man this devoted? That guy from the Lin family is nothing but a trust fund baby. He's not even in the same league as this up-and-comer. Gu Zhili's gaze met mine, the very pride and backbone that defined him. He bent for me. Someone kicked the door open and shoved Gu Zhili aside. It was my mother. She took my hand and pushed me toward the car. Sweetheart, we'll miss our tickets if we don't hurry. That boy from the Lin family will be calling you again in tears any minute now. Gu Zhili was kneeling behind me, calling me mother. There are so many girls outside of town. You're bound to find one you like. Stop thinking about Li Bao. In my eyes, Lin Ao is the only son-in-law I'll ever accept. I stopped paying any mind to the commotion behind me and ran with all my might toward where I needed to be. When autumn arrived, I spent all my time following Lin Ao around. In his past life, it was this very month when the accident happened. I kept watch from the beginning of the month right through to the end, but nothing happened. Business at the factory kept getting better and better, all the way until the new year. Just when I let my guard down, the phone rang in the middle of the night. Sis, there's been an accident at the factory. Someone's leg got crushed. My mind went blank and my legs turned to jelly. I rushed to the hospital, and there was Lin Ao, standing perfectly fine in the lobby. He looked hesitant, unwilling to let me in to see the injured person. It's Gu Zhili. He was wandering near the factory and saved a child who was almost hit. The child's leg was crushed by a truck. No matter the cost, the factory will cover it. Lin Ao, not wanting me to worry, said, "Don't worry." He was helping one of our factory workers, which means he was helping us, after all the twists and turns. The fate of a broken leg had somehow befallen Gu Zhili. Qingmei came to see him. Rumor has it they got married, then divorced, and it was a very messy affair. Lu Ting was so frightened upon seeing Gu Zhili's leg injury that she dropped the fruit basket and fled. Gu Zhili's eyes were calm, devoid of any joy or sorrow. I had come by a few times, but never went inside, just leaving the supplies he needed. As I was leaving that day, Gu Zhili called out to me, "Li Bao, are you out there?" I recognized your footsteps. He was sitting on the hospital bed, with a box of food beside it. "Li Bao, I always carry food with me, in case you get hungry. They told me not to come see you, but I'll sneak a look, just to know you're doing alright. I've paid my debt to Lu Ting. For the rest of my life, I owe only you." Fine lines had appeared on Gu Zhili's face. He kept his head down, his gaze fixed only on my shoes. I set down the condolence money and quietly shared a piece of news with him. Upon hearing it, Gu Zhili's hands trembled, and he slumped weakly onto the bed. He knows there's no future for us in this lifetime. This is what Gu Zhili owes me, what he owes me and our child, a debt he can never repay, and I don't want him to repay it. The moment I stepped outside, I ran towards the person waiting beyond the exit. He waited anxiously outside, beaming with a healthy, radiant smile. "I have some great news to share with Lin Ao. Extra, Lin Ao's dream. I keep dreaming about a child lately." It scared Lin Ao so badly he fainted, and the poor guy didn't even have a girlfriend. This staunch materialist was so terrified that he went to a temple to make a vow. The old fortune teller giving the reading studied Lin Ao carefully. "Patron, what clings to you is not an evil spirit, but a blessing." From then on, Lin Ao was haunted by dreams of that child. He was small and slender, with big, round eyes. "Big brother, you're going to marry Li Bao in the future." Lin Ao woke up with a start, beaming with joy. After all, he had liked Li Bao for a very long time. There was a girl in town who did everything in a rough and tumble way, when he was little. If anyone teased him by calling his whole family a bunch of iron eggs, Li Bao, freshly missing a front tooth, would slap them without a second thought. "My whole family's illiterate too." Lin Ao was shy and only dared to follow behind her like a little shadow, but as Li Bao grew up, she never took her studies seriously, spending all her time running around and playing like a monkey. Lin Ao was swamped with schoolwork and under strict family supervision. By the time he tried to reach out to Li Bao again, she already had Gu Zhili by her side. What's more, Li Bao didn't even recognize him. This childhood playmate she'd only met a handful of times, probably because he'd gone through a major glow-up and turned into quite the looker. Standing beside her was Gu Zhili, a university student who had come to the town for a practical placement. He was a few years older than Li Bao, with a face that was all sharp angles and narrow features, yet Li Bao adored him, becoming his little shadow. When the Li family began looking for a suitable match for her, Lin Ao was the first to hear about it and immediately stepped forward to volunteer himself, and because of this, Li Bao threw herself into the river. That very night, Lin Ao tearfully called off the arranged marriage. To love someone is to let them go, but what right does Gu Zhili have? Upon hearing that Li Bao had agreed to another matchmaking session, Lin Ao tearfully begged the matchmaker for help once more. On the day of the date, Lin Ao snapped his fingers and ordered the trendiest new suit, got a fresh haircut, and even swiped some cologne from a family member. On the way, he remembered the child from his dreams saying, "Li Bao has a sweet tooth, make sure she's well fed, she must learn to read, or she'll be at a disadvantage later in life, and you must treat her well." Lin Ao followed every instruction, and sure enough, Li Bao began to take a liking to him. That Gu Zhili was left behind. For the first dance, Li Bao chose him, trusting him. Her smile and the touch of her hand were both warm. From that day on, the child in the dream gradually faded away. Lin Ao wondered if this was their future child, their little lucky star, whose eyes and brows bore a striking resemblance to Li Bao's. Full of clever mischief, the factory business kept him busy, but Lin Ao wanted to broaden his horizons, aiming to return home after his studies and make a real difference. Naturally, Li Bao would be going with him. The child had whispered once that Li Bao dreamed of seeing the Eiffel Tower and foreign landscapes. Lin Ao pooled his New Year's money to cover Li Bao's flight and living expenses. The one he loved by his side deserved the world. When spring arrived with blooming flowers the following year, Lin Ao and Li Bao officially registered their marriage. He never told Li Bao about the nightmares he'd had, where Gu Zhili married Li Bao and they even had a child together, limping on a bad leg. I drank myself into a stupor night after night outside their wedding chamber. Occasionally, I would bring some treats and secretly leave them at the door, using only the name of a relative of Li Bao. In the dream, I died before I even turned 25. When he woke, Lin Ao was drenched in a cold sweat, but there, sleeping beside him, was his beloved, Li Bao, still bleary-eyed. Let him sleep a little longer. Lin Ao held his wife tighter. This was real. The child from the dream never appeared again. The last time he saw him, the child was smiling as he said goodbye. I have to go now. Little treasure loves you all very much. For my last birthday wish, I hope you all stay happy and joyful. That's all for today's story. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe. If you have any suggestions, feel free to leave a comment below. See you in the next video.